roads with £1.6 billion budget boost for the road maintenance.
The country is gearing up for the busiest travel day of the year. We'll bring you the latest on disruption and those key areas to avoid if you can.
That's all of them. After a year of underwhelming brand launches and Netflix flops, we are asking, should we start to feel sorry for Harry and Meghan?
Not really. It's a very vegan Christmas as demand for plant-based festive food spikes. We'll find out later which veggie options are making it to the Christmas table.
And in sport this morning, well, crazy night in North London. Spurs beat Manchester United 4-3 in the Carabao Cup. Tyson Fury. I'm straight down the middle. I have no favourites. Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk have an 11-minute face-off before their fight tomorrow night. And the champion from 2 years ago is knocked out of the World Darts Championships in the first round.
Lots of people getting away for Christmas over the next few days, but the weather is looking increasingly windy. I'll have the full details coming up in the forecast soon.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
All right, Paul Coyte.
I'm told, do not show any favouritism when it comes to sport whatsoever. So I'm just straight down. I didn't give anything away, did I?
Man United fan will be upset.
Yeah, it's when you go, I wasn't laughing at that. It was just, I was laughing at a joke someone told me earlier. You know when they do that and you go, really?
Completely neutral, unbiased broadcasting.
That's what I'm all about. That's what I'm all about.
To be fair, I hadn't heard the result until you just read it then.
It's 4-3.
4-3,
It was ridiculous. It was Spurs were 3-0 up and then did their best to throw it away. And then came back again. It was the most bizarre. It was the most bizarre.
Yeah, but Ange will be pleased. I mean, he'll be all right.
Ange will be pleased.
Your new best mate.
Ange may well have a smile on his face. And I even had a chat with Heung-min's son afterwards as well, who's lovely. And he scored from a corner. Directly from a corner. That's
brilliant.
Wow,
that was amazing. Incredible. So that's the reason my voice is just a little croaky this morning.
How much sleep have you had, Coity?
2 hours, 45 minutes.
Oh, that's enough for anybody.
Exactly.
Brilliant stuff. All right, Paul, we'll see you a little bit later on.
Enough, Stephen.
So you can
have a kip.
I'll have a
kip.
kip.
Celebrate throughout the show.
I can't like that.
Right, our main news this morning. The Bank of England has warned the economy is stagnating following that controversial autumn budget.
Good funk. Economists have said this is due to businesses raising prices and cutting jobs in order to contend with the changes.
Well, officials now expect zero growth in the last 3 months of the year.
OK, we're now joined by former Minister for Immigration, Kevin Foster. Kevin, this is not exactly shock news to many people.
Not a shock at all. And we were, the fastest growing economy in the G7 earlier this year. We're now seeing ourselves potentially heading towards recession. And what's going to make this, I think, puts even more in stark relief is with Donald Trump coming in January in the US, we could well see the US taking a different policy approach and then starting to grow and do pretty well. And, we're already starting to see indications that people are moving investment out of Europe and into the US as a result of that. So, yeah, not a great surprise. You're taxing employers for employing people. That's going to have an impact.
What about the argument which Labour makes that says this is all about laying the foundations and that's not always easy and you don't see the results straight away?
Well, I think we're seeing the results pretty quickly in this case. But they'll make all sorts of claims. But ultimately, when it comes back to it, this is the type of economic policies that will drive the UK downwards. It's now they spent the whole summer slagging off the economy and then wondered why investors reacted to that. And yeah, we're seeing now the inevitable impact of this. And what actually the irony is, some of the public spending changes that they probably wanted to try and avoid by having these tax rises will probably end up getting anyway, because if the economy shrinks, clearly tax revenue shrinks, and we know what comes next.
How much of this is down to that national insurance hike that they promised they weren't going to do anything to national insurance, and then suddenly, the businesses are saying this is all down to that. We are going to have to make people redundant, and small business closing?
Well, it'd be a mixture, but certainly for some sectors like hospitality, health and care, where you are very staff reliant. You cannot really deliver for example, a pub or a restaurant. You're reliant on having staff to serve your customers. They'll be hit pretty hard. But I think it's the wider sense and also the narrative they're creating. If you tell people, particularly investors, that not only have you already put tax up, you might do it again. Well, people don't just sit there; they do stuff in reaction.
Yeah. You talked about the link with the United States and the fact that they might take a different policy direction when it comes to the 20th of January, when Donald Trump is back in the White House. We have at least been told there's going to be a new ambassador, Lord Mandelson. Mandy is back.
Yeah, this guy seems to keep having comebacks. Some of us have been involved in politics and pub airs long enough to remember his things previous too,
Loop here. I've been here before.
Yeah, perhaps he could set up a band to really complete the image. I think it'll be a competition perhaps between him and, let's be honest, Boris about comebacks that have happened. It's an interesting appointment, although having been the architect in New Labour, you might find Donald Trump a bit left-wing for him. So, but let's see what happens there.
But it's actually, although there is controversy around it because Mandelson is a controversial figure, he is actually a very good strategist and a very good negotiator, isn't he? So he might be just what we need. Yeah,
he's a strategist and a pragmatist at the end of the day. And for the US, we look at it strangely when there's a political appointment made to be an ambassador. For the US, that's routine. So the ambassador who will be appointed into the UK, or has been appointed to the UK by Trump, will be someone that is Trump's person here in London, not a career civil servant. Yeah. In the way we appoint ambassadors. So for the US system, this will seem quite normal to have someone like this appointed. Time will tell. Can he bring what he brought in his strategy to success over there? I think that's open for question, because first thing on his agenda has got to be what is happening about the Chagos Islands, because it's very obvious that Trump does not agree with that deal. The Mauritian government now wants to renegotiate it. The one party in that left arguing that this is a good idea is the UK government.
The one thing it made me worry about is that Peter Mandelson obviously was a staunch Remainer, wanted a second referendum. This appointment makes me think how close he is to Keir Starmer and working behind the scenes of the current Labour government. Do you think this is just another tiny step towards pushing us back into some kind of backdoor deal with the EU?
Well, Mandy was also a EU commissioner as well in his long list of CVs, of jobs. Possibly, yeah. I think what we're seeing, though, from Labour more generally is a narrative that potentially they'd like to push us more back towards the EU. We've seen narratives about potential deals of under 30s being able to have either free movement or come and live and work here again. So, behind the scenes, there's a lot of Labour who've never actually accepted the referendum result, full stop. They still think privately that they would like to find some way of overturning it. So possibly this is, but I think it's probably mostly motivated by the fact that he's a strategist, he's a pragmatist, and he'll be able to find his way around Washington.
Back to the economic situation and your former brief on immigration. What difference would it make to our economic situation if immigration was brought under control?
Well, I think it actually could make potentially a positive one. You can look at things like how you make sure that the labour market policy links up with migration policy. To my former colleagues, one of my frustrations was always that we would have a discussion about how many people we train, what budgets we have for that with the Treasury, and then the next day we'd discuss immigration rather than discuss the two of them together. We should sometimes be blunt with sectors that aren't investing and aren't training and aren't offering the packages they should be to domestic workers, that actually, immigration shouldn't provide an alternative to that. But we'll still have a migration system. Most people agree that the highest skilled, those coming here to do, for example, university lecturing, those coming here to conduct detailed research, would be people we still welcome. What we need to have the debate on is actually how many we welcome in more wider skill sets. And also, of course, the drain on public finances that the small boats crisis has put is helping absolutely no one, which hence why there does need to be robust action on it.
OK. Kevin, really good to see you this morning. Thank you. We will see you a little bit later on. Now, of course, all that leads actually into our poll of the day today, and we're asking about Lord Mandelson, whether you call him Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, Prince of Darkness, as he was known at the time, or just plain old Mandy. Should he be the UK's next US ambassador? What do you think about that? We're going to bring you the results live throughout the day, so stay tuned. Final result in Martin's show this afternoon. If you want to take part, go to gbnews.com/poll.
Indeed. OK, the Prime Minister has pledged £1.6 billion to help repair those 7 million potholes across the UK.
Well, Sir Keir hopes the major boost will allow motorists to save on damage costs and enable quicker and safer journeys for drivers.
It comes as it's been revealed damage to cars from crumbled roads cost drivers around £500 on average.
Well, let's talk to highway and pothole expert Dave Gaster. Dave, good to see you this morning. I mean, there's been calls for a lot of money to go into this. £1.6 billion. What impact will that actually have on the problem that we face on our roads?
I think it will help a lot. It's really half a billion extra, but it will help to fix potholes. It will help to fix the minds of the people who are in charge of highway safety. And it goes a little way towards restoring the sort of budgets that we used to have. But we are a long way down on budget, and there's a lot of very poor decisions made where temporary potholes are fixed and they fail again within days. So this is a small part of the way forward again towards safer roads.
When you say it goes a little way towards it, what more needs to be done?
The actual spend on highways has reduced by about a factor of 3 over the last 30 years, which is why they've been getting worse and worse. And also, you've got a change in the laws where people have dumbed down their thinking on what this is about. And we have a situation now where 3% of the highway network causes 55% of the problems, and yet they have a single system to actually inspect and do most potholes. It just doesn't work. And part of the announcement that we've got from government today is that they want people to think about what's causing the potholes before they get all of the money.
Right.
Right. I mean, eliminate. But in terms of this money, though, because it's one thing to give 1.6 billion, £500 million, you say, extra on what we've seen so far. But it's about maintaining that funding, isn't it, into the foreseeable to make sure we don't end up back where we started.
Yes, absolutely. My friend Mark Morell, Mr. Pothole, is saying we actually need $3 billion a year extra to actually get us back, and that would save $14 billion a year in costs, the damage to vehicles, the injuries to people. We've also worked on Curing Pothole Britain, which actually says if you actually just work this in a totally different way and you think about how you strategise, have your tactical inspections, your tactical working, you could actually reduce injuries and accidents and things like that. The cost of crashes on the road every year is $42 billion, and yet this only goes a tiny way to actually dealing with that. If you actually focused on reducing crashes, you could save $8 billion a year easily from that. There's also $16 billion a year cost of congestion. So you can see there's some very big numbers of waste within the government that aren't addressed yet.
Well, let's hope they look at it. OK, Dave Gaster, really good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
You know what? We're also being encouraged to report dedicated gov.uk page. If you spot a pothole, you report it there. I did that the other day. Nothing happened. Nothing happened.
No, but maybe that will change now. Let's try and be positive. People, it is nearly Christmas.
Yes, it's nearly Christmas.
I mean,
Merry Christmas.
any extra money that's going to try and help solve the problem has got to be a good thing, but it's whether it goes far enough. Just don't know. Right, let's see what the weather's going to do for you today. It's very cold out there, first thing. Here's Aidan.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a fine start out there for many of us, but the weather turns increasingly wet from the northwest through the day, increasingly windy as well, although not as windy as it's expected to be through the weekend. Initially, some sunshine for the Midlands, parts of the east and southeast of England, but increasingly cloud and rain spread southeast through the day. A wet start for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland. As the rain clears, we've got blustery showers moving in. And by the afternoon, it's Western and Northern England, as well as Wales, where we're likely to see spells of rain. 11 Celsius in the south, feeling colder further northwest, where we've got gusty northwesterly breeze and those showers pushing in. But for anyone that's heading off this evening's rush, it looks unsettled across the Midlands, the east and southeast of England. The rain and wind are clearing, so some clearer spells pushing into Wales and the southwest, as well as northern England by 6 p.m. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, will see frequent showers at this stage and a gusty wind. Temperatures of 6 or 7 Celsius. But all in all, the wind is tending to ease and clear spells will form more widely, particularly across central and southeastern England, where those clear spells will be lengthy overnight, and as a result, temperatures will drop away to 5 to 7 Celsius. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of the west of England and Wales, it turns wet and windy by the end of the night once again, and as a result, temperatures will rise by dawn. It's an unsettled start for many then, and the spells of rain are moving eastwards, petering out as they push into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but staying damp for much of the morning in these areas. Brighter skies arrive into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland by the afternoon, but at this stage the wind's really picking up, 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts. 80 or more for the west and north of Scotland could cause significant transport disruption throughout Saturday afternoon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yeah, it's a bit nippy out there, isn't it?
It certainly is. Get a coat, get your big coat on.
Yeah, yeah. But we're not going to work Christmas, are we?
Well, I'm not.
No.
Are you?
Well, no.
Oh.
We're not going to have a white Christmas.
Oh, a white Christmas. I thought you said it'd be working Christmas.
No, white Christmas.
I was going to say, don't you know yet?
Your age, your hearing's going. Your hearing's going. Well, talking about that, we will be hearing about a very magical Christmas, evidently. That's next. This is GB News with him, Stephen, and me, Dawn. See you soon.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's about Generation Z spending 6 hours a day online. Generation Z, which age group is that?
16 to 24.
OK, great.
Now, this could explain why there's 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24
100%.
not working. Work.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show and we're talking about it, and the lefty person I was on with was making excuses for the fact that we've got 9 million people unemployed. And this woman, this mom, rang in and she was hilarious. And I thought she was going to have a go at me. She said, "Cara Malone." I thought, here we go, another one. And she goes, "You are absolutely right." She said, "I've just thrown my son out of the house, who's 24. She said, my husband and I, she said, we worked all our lives, 2 jobs, to get him to college, to get him to a private school. Yeah. She said, he hasn't worked a day. No. And his attitude was, why should I? And you think, and she said he spends all day online.
On his phone.
That's all he's
because
doing.
we would have gone to get a job because we were bored. And the trouble is, Jonathan, the younger generation are never, ever bored because the algorithms keep them stimulating.
Well, the dopamine hits keep coming. I think it's actually a problem for all of us. Yeah. You know, now for anyone, if you just have a moment to yourself, a lot of people of all ages, what do we reach for? We reach for our phones, particularly for those. Obviously, if we're with a friend, we'll talk to them.
Your age group, you're not talking about...
I know that. I've spoken to a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who also will just, you know, if they have a free minute on the tube or whatever, they'll just look at their phone and read. And it's actually terrifying because on the iPhone every Monday it tells you how much time you spent on your phone the previous week. And it's,
how much for you?
On average per day?
Fair few hours. I mean, a lot of that will be work.
What's a ballpark? Oh, more than 5?
Occasionally 5, yeah.
Well,
better things to do.
spending 6 hours a day.
Do you never read a book?
Well, that'll be at night time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, it's 6:21 and a family in Kilbride are opening their home to locals to experience their magical Christmas display, doing it for the 9th year in a row.
I love these stories. The Manor House lights up at Christmas to raise money for a range of local charities.
Well, if you want to visit, you're able to indulge in Christmas delights, including hot chocolate, roasted marshmallows as well, while you enjoy what is a really extravagant display.
So Toby Maguire, who gets all the best jobs, has gone to investigate for us.
We all have that one house near us that goes all out at Christmas. But how many continue the light fantastic inside? The Manor House is home to the Clark family in West Kilbride, welcoming young and old into their home to share in the family's love of this festive holiday. Over the years, Cameron Clark has watched the spirit of Christmas spread through the village.
You know, I've grown up on this street, so I've seen it when, you know, we were the only people that had a Christmas tree in the window, and then we had one upstairs and downstairs, and people would stop and think, oh my God, there's trees in that house. And now, you know, there's 37. But to watch our neighbours take part, and not just our neighbours, but further streets behind and below, and the entire town of West Kilbride take part. I mean, it is a village, but it's a town when it comes to something like this.
8 miles of tinsel, 10,000 baubles, 80,000 lights, 37 trees, and a place to toast your marshmallows. Sorry about that. With something for everyone and festive surprises around every corner, visiting families like the McCluskeys keep coming back.
I just can't take it all in. It's just, everything's amazing. Just love it. Just all the fancy lights and everything.
I think this is a place to see because it's very magical.
Every year the Clarks raise money for local good causes, and it runs smoothly thanks to a small group of volunteers and family friends. This was Kay's first year helping out, but she's no stranger to the impact the house has on the local community.
It's done a lot of good in this particular area, especially since with all the rough weather, it's always quite dark, and they always bring such a wonderful light to the area, and it's so cheerful to see.
It's a bit odd to call this the Manor House, knowing that the Clarks live here. But if opening your home and spreading good cheer isn't what Christmas is all about, then what is?
Merry Christmas!
Tony Maguire, GB News, West Kilbride.
Wow.
You know what? I just like Debbie Big Bird. Good morning, Debbie. Love the name. God, I bet that took ages to do. And I was just sitting there thinking the same thing.
It would take forever to get it all up and forever to get it down again. But what a nice thing for the community. That they do that and people are coming round.
I think it's a
bit of community spirit.
Yeah.
That's what I like about it.
I've got one string of fairy lights around the balcony and the husband complains about that.
Yeah, well, I know. It's. I think it's. I mean, it's heck. I wouldn't want to do it myself, but that is phenomenal. And so I just think it's nice that everyone's getting together and they're all, you know, supporting charity and all the rest of it.
But that's the thing, they're doing it for charity. I mean, so it's come on, it's nearly Christmas. Are you ready yet? I'm not ready yet. Are you ready?
I mean, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, we are ready now. We are sorted now. But it's like little things like first footing. Do you first foot?
No, I don't. That's a Scottish thing, isn't it, mostly?
Yeah, I suppose. We do it in the north of England as well. But, I mean, it's. I mean, that's nice. You go around your neighbour's house and knock on the door on New Year's... Well, you know, just after New Year. And all that, but it's all community, isn't it?
Is that what you take a lump of coal thing?
Lump of coal.
What's the coal for?
It's meant. I think the coal. Well, it's just because you provide. You know, it's about the heat, isn't it? And providing. It's a gift and what have you.
Bottle of wine would be better, wouldn't it?
Well, no, but it's tradition. I'd have to look, but I think it's about you're providing a gift and heat in the winter and all that sort of thing. I think it's stuff
not
like that.
very good for the environment, though, is it?
Stuff.
I mean, you'd have Miliband on.
Bob off.
Miliband on you like a ton of
walk around
bricks.
with a solar panel. I just think it's really nice because it's all part of the community. It's all about getting to know your neighbours and things, but it's all sort of dying off now. It's a real shame.
It is. It is. It's a time to hug one another. Be nice.
You watch yourself, you. Report you.
Gave you a hug this morning. You didn't. Oh, yeah, actually, you did complain, didn't you? Have you got that yet?
No, I'm still waiting on HR. Right now, time for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to become our biggest ever winner. You could win, wait for it, £50,000, and it's absolutely tax-free. Here's how you can enter.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
With that, indeed. I've got a confession to make that while that was running, I actually assaulted Stephen Dixon again. I would like to apologise, Stephen, for that second hug of the morning. So I'm sorry if you're
disgusting. You don't know the world we live in at the moment. Now, do you fancy a bit of winter sun? If so, let's give you the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Wow, still to come. We have, poor Coit, who's not at all happy with the result last night.
Ding! He's got all the sport in just a minute.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed eastbound from the A82 at the Longman roundabout to the A96 at the Raigmore interchange in Inverness because of an accident. Tyne and Wear Metro services are suspended between Heworth and Monument because of emergency engineering works. The port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs to storm damage, with sailing still suspended between Holyhead and Dublin. The port's not expected to reopen until the middle of January at the earliest. In Staffordshire, the A41 is impassable eastbound because of flooding along Wergs Road in Wolverhampton. There are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Fishguard and Rosslare. On the M25 in Berkshire, it's down to a single lane clockwise just before junction 13 at Staines, where overnight roadworks have overrun, causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, it's interesting because I haven't actually been told specifically what I've done, which has resulted in me being removed from my committee position, which was head of daytime. I started a podcast in September in which I interviewed Charlie Bentley-Astor, who's a detransitioner. I then also interviewed Graham Linehan and I wrote an article for his Substack. And shortly after that, I was told that I had been suspended and the university union started an investigation into me. And that very quickly became apparent to me that it was an interrogation of my gender-critical views rather than any sort of misconduct that I had been alleged to.
Right.
And Graham Linehan has been outspoken on issues relating to transgender ism, whatever you want to call it, gender ideology. And so perhaps just by having associated yourself with him as a controversial figure, that was why the investigation happened, you suspect?
Yes, and already it's quite clear that guilt by association is a crime that you can commit within university societies. I actually purchased my free speech union membership way before this all happened, when a friend helped me edit the episode with Charlie, and he got in trouble with a separate society who told him that he must disassociate himself from me, and if he didn't, further measures would be taken. So at that point I thought, well, I better put some damage control in place and purchase my membership in case anything happens to me.
So this decision is made by the student union, right? Is that made up of fellow students? Or who's making this call?
Well, that's actually part of my appeal. So the process has been completely improper. They haven't followed their own guidelines. There are two different guidelines as to whether a complaint is dealt with the society itself, so Leeds Student Radio, or the union, and it's basically been a mishmash of both. So it's been an improper procedure, but it is, as far as I'm aware, it's the student union who's decided to remove me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Paul Coyte's here with all the sport at 6:31. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good night.
Oh, is that it? Are we over with?
That was quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and to you. It's good night from me, and it's good night from him. Good night.
Oh, go on.
It was, I tell you what, it was a crazy game. You never know what you're going to get with Spurs. Well, actually, you do. You just know it's going to be pretty crazy. So, Spurs, this is in the Carabao Cup. Spurs are playing Manchester United, quarter-final, and Spurs go 3-0 up. But you would think in most football matches, it's done and dusted. Oh, no. So then there was a game back in about 2002 where Spurs were 3-0 up and lost 5-3 to Manchester United. And it's still fresh in a lot of supporters' minds. So at 3-0, you're thinking, well, it's still about another 20 minutes to go. Then Fraser Forster, the goalkeeper, makes a mistake. 3-1. Then he makes another mistake. He's got the ball because they're told the way they play is play out from the back. You know, you don't hoof it, you play out from the back. So he gets the ball, and then it's like, well, no, he kicks it, it's the player goes in. 3-2. Then it's all getting a bit wobbly. Mr. Holmes was sitting near me as well, and I could see his eyes were lighting up, thinking there's something going on here. Then Heung-min Son, Spurs do not score from corners. It's just one thing Arsenal are great at, Spurs never do. Heung-min Son not only actually scores from a corner, directly from a corner, goes straight in. Then Manchester United get another goal. How many? Is that about 15 goals I've gone through?
So far.
Yeah.
So
anyway, feels like it.
So anyway, 4-3, and it ended that way. It was a crazy game. It was very exciting. So now we've got then the draw for the semi-final was made. So Spurs will be playing Liverpool in the semi-final. And Arsenal will play Newcastle the week, as I always say in the draw, week commencing January 6th. And the second leg will be the week commencing 3rd of February. So it's quite a gap between the two games. Yeah, so quite a gap between the two games.
Don't moan about that. You normally moan that there isn't enough recovery time.
Yeah, I know. Well, there you go. So anyway, no, it was very exciting. Chelsea beat Shamrock Rovers, by the way, 5-1.
Shamrock Rovers?
In the Conference League. So...
Yeah. Well, there's a surprise.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, no offence, Shamrock Rovers.
I know, but, I mean, let's be honest.
You're going to have to apologise to Shamrock Rovers supporters now. Come on.
Yeah. I think Shamrock Rovers think they did quite well, so I wouldn't really worry. It was only 5.
Yeah.
So,
Now I'm really good there. I've just taken the heat off you, Steve. You leave it with me.
Good man.
Well
now,
done,
you know, I'm looking forward to the boxing.
Yeah, I know.
I like the boxing. I don't know why I like the boxing.
Oh, I could give you lots of reasons.
What a face-off last night.
Well, it's
Tyson Usyk.
Fury and Usyk, yeah. Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. So they fought, and it went to a split decision, which means that there were 3 judges, and 2 of them agreed, and then it went to the final one. Now, Fury, in the first fight, he was just a bit dancey and not taking it seriously enough. Now, look at this. There we are. We could stare at this. See, the thing is, it's the guy behind.
Are we rolling the pictures?
This is not a still. This is not a still. Now, the guy behind, he's doing really well because he's keeping still too. Now, you can actually tell that it's not still because there's an arm that's moving on the right-hand side. How long do you reckon this went on for?
Oh, go on, a good 5 minutes.
It's actually still going on right now. No, 11 minutes. 11 minutes.
11
Isn't
minutes.
it crazy?
Doing that, just staring at each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's ridiculous.
Staring at each other for 11 minutes. I'm not going to blink. Are you going to blink? No, I'm going to blink. Who's it harder for? Is it harder for Usyk because he's looking up?
Yes.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, I've got to keep my chin up, keep looking at that man in the face. So you've got Tyson Fury there, and as I mentioned, he said the talking's been done. The first fight, I talked and joked all of my career. This time, I'm taking out the expletives, by the way, as you'd expect. This time, I'm serious. I'm going to do some damage. Now, the thing is, so we're probably, a minute into the face-off? Everybody's getting really bored now, thinking, when is this actually going to come to an end? It's just, I'm not going to blink. I'm not going to blink.
I tell you what, the tension, though. It does build it up to it's going to be a great fight.
I think it will be too, because I think that Tyson Fury did think he was going to walk this, and he's unbeaten. They're both unbeaten.
Who blinked first, by the way, at the end of the 11 minutes? Who blinked first?
I don't know.
Oh.
I do think, with 11 minutes, Dawn, I do think there was a little bit of blinking going on, because otherwise there'd be tears and everything.
I know,
like that. So, anyway, I think both of them. Oh, what you mean, who walked away?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that.
We're going to have to practice
for 7:30, I'll see how it ended and see if anybody actually turned.
They'd have to someone go in to separate them off, because they wouldn't have...
Because it'd be a sign of weakness if you walked away.
We're going to have a practice, aren't we, boys? We're going to have to put this to the test.
I'll probably go for about 20 seconds.
Well, that would be a fascinating 11 minutes of television and radio for our viewers and listeners.
Oh, no.
That's freaking me out.
She's looking at you and I'm intimidated already.
Oh, no, it's not right. Paul, run while you can.
I will.
We'll see you later.
Oh, yeah, give me that look. Don't give me that look.
Thanks, Coy.
We're going to be joined very shortly by the Secretary of State for Transport to hear about the government's plans to fix our pothole-plagued roads.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes, the bane of everybody that uses a road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here, we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All right, time for the papers this morning with former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and former advisor to Nadeem Zahawi, James Price. Good morning to you both. Scarlett, come have a look. It's on a lot of the papers this morning. You put the Telegraph and the Mail to look at the Prince of Darkness. It's a rather unfortunate nickname that you acquired.
I quite liked it. I thought it was quite sexy.
Well, I'm sure that he thinks it's very sexy. I mean, you know, those hips sort of swivelling around. I think one can say that this is expected, that Peter Mandelson will go to Washington and be the UK ambassador. And the only thing was that I think Keir Starmer was waiting to see who won the American election to look at the fit. He'll love it. I mean, he will.
Will he be able to do the job?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, the thing about Peter Mandelson is that he goes into a place, he works out what is needed and how to get there, and he'll have absolutely no compunction in getting very, very close to Donald Trump and all his advisors. He's a completely charming man, very intelligent, very funny. I think he'll do the job very, very well, actually.
He's got, James, not a great reputation on this side of the pond, but he is someone who can do the job over there, isn't he?
That's right. He is an impressive man. It's just a pity that maybe the track record in domestic government here and in the European Union was quite everything that it was. But look, he's a smooth operator. I think that the bigger concern for us here is that are we now going to start seeing a politicisation of the diplomatic service?
What's wrong with that?
It's always been
What's wrong with
career diplomats. Well, because what happens then when you start owing people favours and things? So if you look at the American system, often it's people who have been big donors to the successful presidential candidate and they get given sweet gigs for 4 years off in kind of sun-kissed climbs and things like that. Is that going to be good for diplomacy or not? Time will tell for us.
Well, I'm sorry to break in. We're going slightly to pop because we need to speak to the Transport Secretary who's lined up, but we're going to speak to her in just a moment. First, though, let's have a quick look at the weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a fine start out there for many of us, but the weather turns increasingly wet from the northwest through the day, increasingly windy as well, although not as windy as it's expected to be through the weekend. Initially, some sunshine for the Midlands, parts of the east and southeast of England, but increasingly cloud and rain spread southeast through the day. A wet start for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland. As the rain clears, we've got blustery showers moving in. And by the afternoon, it's Western and Northern England, as well as Wales, where we're likely to see spells of rain. 11 Celsius in the south, feeling colder further northwest, where we've got gusty northwesterly breeze and those showers pushing in. But for anyone that's heading off this evening's rush, it looks unsettled across the Midlands, the east and southeast of England. The rain and wind are clearing, so some clearer spells pushing into Wales and the southwest, as well as northern England by 6 p.m. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, will see frequent showers at this stage and a gusty wind. Temperatures of 6 or 7 Celsius. But all in all, the wind is tending to ease and clear spells will form more widely, particularly across central and southeastern England, where those clear spells will be lengthy overnight, and as a result, temperatures will drop away to 5 to 7 Celsius. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of the west of England and Wales, it turns wet and windy by the end of the night once again, and as a result, temperatures will rise by dawn. It's an unsettled start for many then, and the spells of rain are moving eastwards, petering out as they push into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but staying damp for much of the morning in these areas. Brighter skies arrive into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland by the afternoon, but at this stage the wind's really picking up, 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts. 80 or more for the west and north of Scotland could cause significant transport disruption throughout Saturday afternoon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, we are delighted to say that we're joined by the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander. Good morning to you, Minister. And do you know what? It's on a day when you're announcing more money to fix potholes, which is a huge problem for this country, and yet it's still not going to be enough money, is it?
Well, look, £1.6 billion to be allocated across councils is a really significant investment. It's £500 million more than the last government was spending, the previous Conservative government. That represents a 50% increase. And it actually is the equivalent, that increase, of fixing an additional 7 million potholes. And I think as people are driving home for Christmas this weekend, I want to spread a little bit of Christmas cheer and give them some hope that when they're making that journey next year, then their roads are going to be in a better state than they are today, because we've seen a decade of decline when it comes to investment in our roads and our highways. And so I think it's high time that we get on and fix this problem.
Yeah, this 1.6 billion is going to be allocated across the country. How are you going to councils? How are you going to ensure that the councils spend the money on the actual potholes that we all admit do need work?
Yeah, so we will be releasing 75% of this funding next year to start off with, and we withhold 25% to ensure that councils are reporting back to us on how they are using that money, because we know that some roads at the moment are like obstacle courses, aren't they? You've got huge craters in them, and so what we need to make sure is that those really big safety problems are being tackled first and foremost, but we want councils as well to think strategically about how they use this money in the best way, because it's really important that we get good value for money, and in some cases that will mean proactive road resurfacing. We're also content for this money to be used if there are broken pavements, if there are bridges that are falling down, then local councils will know what their priorities are, and it's really important that this money is used to make the biggest difference in local areas that people are actually going to see and be benefiting from.
Yeah, but the experts say to fix the problem in the UK, and I know money is an issue, but the experts say it would take an additional £3 billion to actually fix the problem. So an additional 500 million obviously is well short of the mark.
Well, this represents a 50% increase on what the previous Conservative government were spending last year. That's a really significant investment, and I think it is a sort of down payment, if you like, on what our ambition for the coming years in terms of improving the state of the roads. We know that the last Conservative government failed to invest. When I was knocking on doors at the general election 6 months ago, in slightly warmer weather than it is today, I remember this issue coming up time and time again. It costs people hundreds of pounds if they're having to go to the garage to mend broken suspensions, replace tyres. So I'm not pretending that this is a silver bullet and that everything is going to be fixed overnight. We had a one-year budget in October, and that was when Rachel Reeves announced that £500 million. It's been welcomed by organisations such as the RAC and the AA as well, because they know that drivers are fed up of these potholes which have been plaguing our roads for far too long.
I know we're almost going to let you go, we're running out of time. You mentioned the budget. The Bank of England has said today the budget itself is stagnating the British economy.
So, look, we've had 14 years of flatlining economic growth in this country, and the truth of the matter is we can't put right all of those wrongs in the 14 weeks, roughly, that we've actually been in government. So the Chancellor delivered a budget for growth. Some of the reforms that we will be bringing through in terms of planning, in terms of infrastructure investment, they are going to take some time to deliver.
Heidi, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Budget responsibility is still predicting. They're still predicting growth next year. And so, yes, I recognise that more needs to be done in order to get money into people's pockets and to get the economy firing on all cylinders. But this is the number one priority of this government.
Heidi,
and we're determined to turn around that decade of decline that we've seen under the last government.
Heidi, before Labour took office, the economy was the fastest growing in the G7, according to the ONS. So it wasn't in decline, was it, before Labour took control?
Oh no, it really was. If you look at the trajectory of growth over the last decade, we have been bumping along the bottom when it comes to growth. That's a fact. And so, there's a huge amount of work to do. Ask your viewers. They won't tell you that the economy was in a better state. They will say that they were struggling under the last government. And that is why a vast majority of people and a vast majority of constituencies voted for Labour MPs at the last election. It's our job to deliver the change that people are impatient for. That's why I'm stood here today telling you how we're going to fix our broken roads. And that's why the Chancellor has got a genuine plan for growth that is going to see household incomes growing, and the fact that we can be in a country where businesses want to come and invest, so that we can have really good quality jobs for people into the future.
OK.
Heidi, I just got one more question, very quick question, because our viewers are asking this question. The RMT have announced more strike action in over New Year and throughout into spring 2025. What are you going to do about that?
So that's one train line, Avanti West Coast. I'm very much hoping and expecting the train operating company, Avanti West Coast, to get down round the table with the RMT to work out whether we can avoid that industrial action. My understanding is that Avanti West Coast are saying that a quarter of services will still be running. Nobody wants strikes, and I'd encourage all parties to get back round the table.
OK, Minister, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. Scarlett Maguire and James Price.
Thanks very much.
Still with us. James, this is a government for growth. People were fed up of us bumbling along the bottom in the last 14 years, so this is a government for growth. Despite the fact that the economy is stagnating, we're predicted 0% growth over the last quarter of the year.
There's definitely a budget for growth and a government for growth. It's growth in the cost of borrowing, it's growth in inflation, it's growth going to be in joblessness, it's going to be growth in the cost of people's mortgages, it's growth in the unpopularity figures for Keir Starmer as the most unpopular Prime Minister ever in the first 5 months of office. I think the problem is that you've got nobody inside that government who's really had any private sector experience at all. They don't understand the theory of what actual growth requires you to have. In most of the cases, it's government getting out of the way. Right? This is a country full of talented people who want to build things, who want to get on in life, who want to make something themselves, pass it on to their children, cough, farmers, cough, and everybody else as well. And people want to get on with things, but there's so much regulation and red tape. And yet, look, the Tories didn't cut any of that away when they should have done, but it's just being made worse and worse here, and it's going to be just poorer.
It's messaging, though, Scarlett, in all of this. I mean, and it matters because we can see there is a problem, and all we get from ministers is saying, no, we're a government of growth, it's our number one priority, but it's not happening.
It's driving me mad, the messaging, right? That everything they do, and they make, for instance, I absolutely agree with the decision on WASPy women that we don't have £10 billion to give to them. But actually, what didn't help was that during the election campaign, they said we'll support them. I think it's right that lots of pensioners do not get the winter fuel allowance. There are lots of rich pensioners, but actually there's still a 2 million gap of people who need it. And what I mean, I do think that actually there are good things going on. And if you're talking about red tape, I mean, what they're doing about planning is incredible. And yet, obviously, you have the Daily Mail going, oh, no, nobody can choose. But actually, either you say we have to we have to get rid of a lot of planning regulations. And it's not just about houses. I mean, they're trying to build a film studio in the Cotswolds, and the county council said no. And actually, Angela has Rayner has lifted it. And this was on very, very grey land. It was a quarry. So there are good things going on, but I do think that the messaging of this government leaves a lot to be desired. You are right, Stephen, for once.
Hey, it's a first.
Well, that's a first, isn't it?
It's a
Absolutely.
miracle. I mean, this is the whole issue with all of this, isn't it? That it's people are starting to not believe what they're being told. You know, and even things that... I mean, I was struck by the fact that all this money for potholes, well, it's 1.6 billion. It's only actually... Well, still a lot of money, but 500 million more than last time. And then even the minister saying, well, they could spend it on pavements and bridges if they want, which would cost a lot more money than filling in potholes. I mean, none of it makes any sense.
It doesn't make sense. And lots of you get in touch, gbnews.com/yoursay, saying, hold on, we're sacrificing pensioners so we can fill a few potholes in that then will need filling in again in a few years' time because they're not going to do it properly. As you say, Stephen...
Well, they should do it properly.
Well,
yes,
but will they?
Should do it properly.
Yeah, well, have they done anything else properly?
The Romans were able to make pretty successful roads, many of which still exist literally thousands of years later. Why is it that our roads aren't rebuilt properly? Well, because the government's not very good at doing many things. So if you, again, get out of the way, if you just actually maybe even let some local residents do some of these things, people get in trouble for going and filling in their own potholes because it doesn't, you know, thousands of pages of risk assessment.
Let's not pretend that the private sector, who actually do end up doing the potholes, they're very rarely done, that the private sector do it any better. I mean, you know, one of the problems for trying to get around, for instance, London, is all the private sector digging up the roads because something's gone wrong here and something's gone wrong there. I don't think it's about government, right? It is, I mean, there is a problem about how to fix potholes. There is no question that they fix a pothole and then it comes back a few years later. I don't think that that's private, between the private and the public sector. It's just we're not filling it. And I think probably the Romans had problems with potholes, but they didn't have as many cars on the road.
They didn't have as much bureaucracy getting in the way of all these things.
Rubbish!
But look, this is the whole point. And again, it goes to the point about growth, right? If you've got the private sector now, you can catch spaceships out of the air.
We've got to stop you there. I'm sorry. Here's the weather. Sorry.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed eastbound from the A82 at the Longman roundabout to the A96 at the Raigmore interchange in Inverness after an accident. The port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs to damage caused by Storm Dara. It's expected to remain closed till the middle of January at the earliest, with sailing still suspended between Holyhead and Dublin. On the M1 in Leicestershire, there's a lane closed northbound where a car's overturned between junctions 21A and 22 from Leicester North to Ashby de la Zouche, causing delays. There are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Fishguard and Rosslare because of poor weather. On the M25 in Surrey, there are clockwise queues where it's down to a single lane just before junction 13 at Staines, where overnight roadworks have overrun. And on the M26 in Kent, there are delays approaching the M25 because of roadworks.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The budget has caused the economy to stagnate, according to the Bank of England.
Andrew Bailey has downgraded growth forecasts and says businesses are cutting costs and raising prices after Rachel Reeves' raid on employers' national insurance.
Well, economists saying they expect zero growth in the final quarter of this year.
And Peter Mandelson makes a comeback. He is expected to be named as UK's ambassador to the United States. The former New Labour spin doctor will be the Prime Minister's link to Donald Trump.
There's some hope for potholes. The government's setting out a roadmap to fixing our roads. £1.6 billion is being allocated for road maintenance.
And Giselle Pellicot's ex-husband is jailed for 20 years after he drugged and raped her, inviting dozens of strangers to abuse her over nearly a decade.
The country gears up for the busiest travel day of the year. We're bringing you the very latest on the disruption and those key areas to avoid if you can.
And after a year of underwhelming brand launches and Netflix flops, we're asking, should we start to feel sorry for Harry and Meghan?
Should do a poll on that. It's a very vegan Christmas as demand for plant-based festive food spikes. Later we'll find out which options are making it to the Christmas table.
In the sport, crazy night in North London. Spurs beat Manchester United 4-3 in the Carabao Cup. Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk have an 11-minute face-off before their fight tomorrow. And Rory McIlroy's indoor team golf looks very good.
Lots of people getting away for Christmas over the next few days, but the weather is looking increasingly windy. I'll have the full details coming up in the forecast soon.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Lucky Jim says the private sector can fix the potholes to a satisfactory level at the right price, but only if they're held to account by government. Same with any procurement. Putting it in the public sector just means a bad job at exorbitant cost.
Yeah.
There's an element of truth to that.
Exactly. And lots of people getting in touch about Heidi Alexander's interview there, saying she just skirts around the big issues and we didn't really get any answers.
Well, I think we did get some answers, but the problem is, I mean, on things like growth and all the rest of it, there is a line they've been told they have to follow, and frankly, it's the fact we can see it's not the case. And we're constantly told this is, growth is a number one priority, but we're seeing stagnation as a result of the budget.
Yeah, quite.
So how does that work? Maybe there is an answer to it. Maybe it's an expected dip as we lay the foundations, as we've been told. But if that's the case...
You're starting to sound like them.
No, but
Change.
But if that's the case...
Working people.
Then why aren't they telling us that that's the case?
Well, it's a communications issue, isn't it? I mean, they do have a communications issue. They never actually manage to say what they should be saying. They always mess it up. How can they be doing that?
Yeah, you feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have an issue with potholes, Mr. Coit?
Yes. This is the time of year? Is it actually during the winter that they appear more? Is that right?
They get worse, because it's all down to the cold and the frost.
And have you actually damaged a tyre or a wheel? Have you done that?
Twice.
So did you go to because they say you can then go to the council and then you can get the money back? And
but you've got to take pictures of it.
Yeah.
And all the rest.
Absolutely.
Mine was on the motorway.
Yeah.
So how are you going to take pictures of it?
Get out of the car.
There's a street, the street that I live in, and they spent a fortune. They redid, I think is the proper phrase, all the pavements. So they had all the asphalt, done all that. there was about 4 potholes. You think, can you just throw some in there? Nah, that's not my job. Yeah. I do the pavements, someone else does the roads.
Yeah. It is, I mean, but if you're a cyclist out there as well, potholes are lethal.
Yeah.
I came off the bike, one of those potholes, it had been raining, there was water in the pothole, came off the bike, actually could get off and take a picture, sent it into the council. Guess what happened?
Nothing?
Nothing.
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
No. I think in the early days, I think it was like, well, you know, I think I did claim once. But now there's so many claims.
Yeah.
No chance.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about money, should we? Because we put it to the Minister earlier on. The Bank of England has warned the economy is stagnating following Rachel Reeves' autumn budget.
Indeed. Economists have said this is due to businesses raising prices and cutting jobs in order to contend with the changes.
Well, officials now expect 0 growth in the final 3 months of this year.
We're now joined by former Minister for Immigration, Kevin Foster, to delve down into this particular story. I mean, Kevin, it is a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, it was like, you know, if you're going to tax employment, you're going to have less people employed.
Yeah, if you tax employment, if you talk down the economy for most of the summer months, and by the way, if you spend most of those summer months telling people we're going to put your taxes up later this year, just to let you know, people don't just sit there and say, oh, that's nice. What people have been doing is shifting money out the country, you know, and we're not talking, you know, people who work hard, many GB News viewers, they can't do that, but the wealthiest, they've been the ones shifting out the money, who are the most mobile. And, you know, Labour say they're digging the foundations, but most of us think they're digging themselves a hole.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem. Whatever we are being told, we're not seeing the reality. And you only convince people by when they see the difference themselves in their own homes, in their own pockets.
Yeah, lots of people will be, even if the figures were looking great, would be saying, well, hang on, you know, I'm losing my winter fuel allowance, I'm seeing energy bills go up, we're likely to go up even further when we look at some of the issues around you know, utterly unrealistic targets to decarbonise the grid, water bills going up. People usually judge it by how they see it themselves. You know, it's partly why Trump won the US election was, you know, it was very much gas and groceries. You know, we talked about those rather than some of the issues Kamala Harris was talking about. But, you know, one of the things we're also seeing, the bond gilt yields going up as well.
So that increases the cost of borrowing for the government.
Yeah. So you end up spending more, but actually getting less in terms of public services. And, you know, we look at some of the stuff around growth. People talk about planning, for example. You know, we look at the fact, was it the Sphere, which could have been here in London, will now think be in Dubai. That got turned down, the idea of light pollution by London's mayor. You know, there's all these sorts of things. And similarly, you know, for my own party, there's a challenge as well. What would we be doing? How would we be being different as well in trying to manage some of these challenges? But you know, looking ahead to 25, the economic outlook is not good. Just at the time when the US could be picking up.
As I say, America seems to be doing not too bad. And talking of America, and you mentioned Trump earlier on, Peter Mandelson is now going to be adding to the gas and groceries list of Donald Trump.
He is. It's, as we reflected earlier, you know, this is one of the latest comeback from a man who's had more comebacks. You should actually think of forming a band, you know, how many comebacks he's having. It's obviously a sign that, you know, Keir Starmer wants someone there who's close to him, who he agrees with. So, and for the Americans, a political appointment is actually what they'd expect of an ambassador, because that's what they do. We think, perhaps shock, horror, it's not a career civil servant. But actually, that's what the Americans are quite used to, is that it's not a career civil servant, is the ambassador. So, you know, he's a strategist. Let's see how he gets on with dealing with Mr. Trump.
Is he that close to Keir Starmer? in the sense that, I mean, obviously he's New Labour. He invented New Labour, did Peter Mandelson. And Keir Starmer, despite everything that he said, appears to be sliding more and more to the left.
Yeah, Keir seems to be more modelling himself perhaps on James Callaghan than on Tony Blair's first administration. But, you know, it's certainly going to be a lot closer to the Prime Minister than, for example, picking a career diplomat would have been. And, you know, Mandy's been, Northern Ireland Secretary, been in the EU Commission, Business Secretary. You know, we can all reel off the various jobs he's had, so it'll be interesting to see how he tackles this one.
He also had resigned twice, didn't he? There was a bit of a scandal in that background as well.
He did. I remember, I think one of them was over a passport case, which obviously relates back to my old brief where he had to resign. But, you know, I think we are going to have to look at what we do. But also, I think one of the first things he's having to tackle is the fact that there are some clear disagreements, not least over the Chagos Island deal, where it's very obvious what Donald Trump's view is. To be fair, Nigel's been pushing that quite hard over the last few months, and rightly so, given the strategic issue it is. And ultimately, you know, I think Trump's going to be the sort of person to say, yeah, thanks for the warm words, but if you're going to press ahead with something like this in the face of my objections, I'm not going to pay too much attention to them.
No, no. It's going to be... In terms of immigration and your former brief, because, I mean, this seems to be getting ignored by the government. I'm sure they deny that. But we're not hearing it in any of the headlines that they're talking about. And yet it is a key issue, isn't it, that actually works its way into every element of society and every decision government needs to be making.
Yep, everything from what your skills strategy is, you know, the balance between making sure sectors are training domestic workers versus just bringing people in from abroad, housing, what your future vision is for productivity of the economy, it all links in. And I think actually, you know, for both major parties, there is a need to react to what the public are thinking on this. And, you know, we can see what Trump's been saying, we can see in other parts of Europe where voters are moving to a very definitive position that they do want to see tougher border enforcement. They want to see fairness between domestic labour and between migration policies. So, yeah, but for both, the government does need to tackle it. Just ignoring it and giving us slogans like smash the gang at work, but similarly, you know, saying things like leaving the HRs on the table in a concerted policy. What does that actually mean? You know, both main parties in 2025 are going to have to be much clearer on what they think or face challenges from reform.
Yeah.
Indeed, yes.
Kevin, really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
OK, at GB News, we love to hear what you think every day, and we'll be running our poll of the day. Today, we're asking, do you agree with Peter Mandelson's appointment as UK's next US ambassador? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned. The final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
Yeah, if you want to take part, gbnews.com/poll. It's 11 minutes past 7 now. Giselle Pellicot has thanked supporters after a difficult ordeal during her rape trial against her ex-husband, who yesterday was jailed for 20 years.
Incredibly brave. I mean, a true heroine. 72-year-old Dominique had been found guilty of raping, drugging and inviting other men to rape his ex-wife, Giselle. Mr Pellicot's lawyer said that he is considering lodging an appeal.
Let's talk to former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Morning to you, Peter. I mean, this is the most remarkable, frankly disgusting case that I think most of us have ever heard about when it comes to sex crime.
A truly appalling series of crimes committed over a number of years where Dominique Pellicot, Giselle's former husband, reduced his wife to nothing more than a playground ride where he met people in car parks, lined them up so that they could come round to the house and in turn, each of them then rape and abuse his wife whilst she was drugged, unconscious and not aware of what was going on. A truly appalling series of crimes, and I think ones for which the punishments handed down yesterday are massively insufficient.
We've had 50 jailed on this, including the odious piece of I can't even describe the man, the husband, the ex-husband in this. Do you think justice has been done though? I mean, some of these men have actually walked away because they've already served time whilst waiting for the trial to conclude.
The sentences, so Dominique Pellicot got 20 years. He will be eligible to apply for parole after serving 2/3 of his sentence, so 13 years and 4 months. He'll be 85 if he lives that long. Surely a massively far too lenient sentence. Other sentences range from 15 years to 3 years, and yes, some of those defendants at the lower end of that scale, because they'd served their time in prison, were actually released. And either way, I think this is appallingly low sentences, very low tariffs for crimes which are utterly appalling, and most definitely, with regards to Dominique Pellicot, a sentence that should have been at least double what was handed down to him.
It does seem extraordinary that, I mean, look, at least with Dominique Pellicot, as you say, he's 72. So whether he will ever see the light of day again is questionable. But the idea that some of these other, including one gentleman who drugged his own wife as well as being involved in the Pellico issue, getting just 12 years. I mean, it does seem remarkably lenient. It's a real shock.
And in all probability, that defendant had probably learned how to do it from Dominique Pellico. And so the offending went on. It is utterly appalling. But whilst I'm complaining so much here, I really would like to highlight the true hero of the hour. And that was a member of staff in a shop who caught Dominique Pellico upskirting. That is, taking photographs up women's skirts, clearly for a perverted desire. And that shop worker stepped in, captured him. His phone was seized. This was the second time he'd been caught for such an offence, by the way. And so when the police turned up, they, quite properly, understanding the likelihood of other serious offending or escalation, which so happens with sex offending, then went, searched all his devices, thoroughly searched his home, and so the horrors of what the court heard yesterday were laid bare.
Peter, this case has shocked France to the core, and, you know, there are calls now for sex crime to be taken much, much more seriously. It's still, in this country, prosecutions for rape and sexual assault are incredibly rare and going down. And you look at the list of men involved in this case, a butcher, a baker, a grocer, nurse, fireman. These are just ordinary men. They're not monsters. They're ordinary men that have committed these crimes. Is it time we started actually toughening up on sex crime in this country?
Well, forgive me, Dawn, I'm going to take issue with you there. They very much are monsters, and we have too many of them in our country. Yes, the conviction rates for offences like rape are appallingly low. The police are aware of this, and they're trying to do something to redress the balance and try and increase arrest, charge and conviction rates, which is only right. Campaigners need to keep campaigning. The media needs to keep the pressure on, and thank you so much for allowing me to highlight this morning. And we need to protect women and girls who are subjected not only to sexual violence, but appalling levels of other kinds of violence, virtually across the board.
But we wouldn't be talking about this, Peter, would we? At least not in this detail. If Giselle Pellico had maintained her anonymity, which she had a right to do, because if that had been the case, we wouldn't have been able to talk. We wouldn't have been able to identify the husband, possibly not even some of the other men in this case. What she has done is to really shed a light on this sort of incident with an immense amount of bravery.
The absolute heroine in this story is Giselle Pellico. Quite wonderful woman, amazingly courageous, to sit in court day after day after day, listening to appalling tales of being repeatedly raped and abused. A truly heroic woman. And she will now be at the very forefront of a new Me Too type of campaign. Me Too, which saw monsters like Epstein and Weinstein jailed quite properly. Let's hope that this movement gathers pace, not only in France, but there is some kind of positive fallout for it over here. Because quite simply, the level of abuse, sexual abuse, assault, rape and murder committed out on women and girls in this country is utterly appalling. It's a national scandal, and we need to mobilise and do something about it as a matter of urgency.
Absolutely. Peter, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Peter Blexley talking sense as always. I mean, it's just the problem. I mean, I get the point you were making about not being monsters. The point is that these are people. These are your next door neighbours.
Yes, these are just ordinary men.
And it just goes to show that you can't be suspicious of everybody. But what is lingering in the community that can come to light when encouraged?
It's astonishing. People that would walk past Giselle in the street, you know, people that worked in the village were involved in raping her. How can you do that? I mean, you know, when women talk about this, it sounds like, oh, you hate all men. We don't hate all men, but I think cases like this illustrate just how wary you have to be, Because these aren't monsters hiding in bushes, I was saying then. These are just ordinary men that you literally live and work amongst.
Next door neighbours.
It's shocking. It really is shocking. But Giselle, I mean, what an absolute heroine. And her first thought when she came out of court was for her family and her grandchildren.
I mean,
Amazing lady.
It's going to just destroy the family, though. That's something they can never get away from, obviously.
No, absolutely.
Right. Let's see what the weather's going to do for you to change tack quite considerably now. It's a cold one, so get your big coat out. Here's Aidan McGivern.
You sound like my mum.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a fine start out there for many of us, but the weather turns increasingly wet from the northwest through the day, increasingly windy as well, although not as windy as it's expected to be through the weekend. Initially, some sunshine for the Midlands, parts of the east and southeast of England, but increasingly cloud and rain spread southeast through the day. A wet start for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland. As the rain clears, we've got blustery showers moving in. And by the afternoon, it's Western and Northern England, as well as Wales, where we're likely to see spells of rain. 11 Celsius in the south, feeling colder further northwest, where we've got gusty northwesterly breeze and those showers pushing in. But for anyone that's heading off this evening's rush, it looks unsettled across the Midlands, the east and southeast of England. The rain and wind are clearing, so some clearer spells pushing into Wales and the southwest, as well as northern England by 6 p.m. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, will see frequent showers at this stage and a gusty wind. Temperatures of 6 or 7 Celsius. But all in all, the wind is tending to ease and clear spells will form more widely, particularly across central and southeastern England, where those clear spells will be lengthy overnight, and as a result, temperatures will drop away to 5 to 7 Celsius. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of the west of England and Wales, it turns wet and windy by the end of the night once again, and as a result, temperatures will rise by dawn. It's an unsettled start for many then, and the spells of rain are moving eastwards, petering out as they push into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but staying damp for much of the morning in these areas. Brighter skies arrive into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland by the afternoon, but at this stage the wind's really picking up, 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts. 80 or more for the west and north of Scotland could cause significant transport disruption throughout Saturday afternoon.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Here's an interesting one from Colin, who says, not a fan of Peter Mandelson being the UK ambassador to the United States. Clearly, Colin, he says, hopefully Donald Trump will reject Mandelson. Because they have the power. It's not just an appointment, it has to be accepted by the president.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, right.
So Trump could actually say no.
And then what happens?
Well, they can't do the role, can they?
No, but
they can still be sort of technically appointed by the UK, but they can't do the role because they can't interact with the White House.
They can't.
After they have a little ceremony and they...
But I mean, Trump and Peter Mandelson were both connected to Jeffrey Epstein at one point, weren't they? So they have got things in common. Oh, by the way, Jim in Australia watching. Hi, what time is it? A good afternoon? Probably. Any
yes,
case,
it will be.
they want to know what colour your tie is.
It's gold.
Yeah, I know. But they're asking, it kind of looks green. They're having a heated debate about your tie.
Green? It's like that dress.
Could be matching.
It's like that black and blue dress or whatever it was. No, it's green. It's gold. Gosh, I don't know what colour it is.
It's gold and it's lovely, and you've got your matching little thing there as well.
If you're best if you're listening on the radio this morning, then you just take my word for it. It's gold.
It is gold. It's very definitely gold. It's a very gorgeous gold. Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, let's tell you how to win £50,000 in tax-free cash, should we? It's our biggest ever prize in our Great British Giveaway, and here's how you enter.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
OK, good luck with that indeed. Still to come, we'll be hearing about the government's plans to tackle the country's potholes. That's next. This is GB News with Stephen and Dawn.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Restaurant St. Bart's executive head chef Johnny Crowe creates ramen with a British twist, using only the finest UK-sourced produce. As the only restaurant in London to hold both a Michelin star and a green Michelin star, St. Bart's emphasises sustainability and the diversity of British ingredients. Johnny joins me now. Johnny, congratulations on having these 2 Michelins. How do you get a Michelin green star?
Probably a better question for the inspectors, but I mean, I think it's down to a lot of hard work.
What hoops do you have to go through?
So I think it's working every day on it. The sustainability isn't something that you just achieve and then therefore you have it and you can sort of relax. It's about every day trying to be better, trying to make a restaurant and a business that is overly sustainable.
So what things do you do to make it sustainable?
One of the main things that we've really tried to do is focusing on British produce, and actually, you know, part of that is about sustainability and food miles. A massive part of it for us was also about sort of helping the British economy and the farming economy and our fisheries as well. But yeah, no, the idea...
You have a lot of farms near St. Bart's, which is in the heart of the City of London.
Well, funnily enough, there's an amazing collective called Shrub Provisions, who we use a hell of a lot, who work with farmers all around East Sussex. So it makes a difference from flying it in from Kenya or somewhere else like that. But no, like a big part of it was, one, using British produce to cut down on food miles, but also helping sustain our farming industry.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
$7.27 now. The UK Civil Aviation Authority is urging people to pack safely and know their consumer rights, with millions of us jetting off for the festive season. Last year, almost 11 million passengers took off from UK airports, and figures show that demand for flights will be even more this year.
Wow. So in the studio with us to share travelling tips for those jetting off this Christmas is Group Director for Consumers and Markets at Civil Aviation Authority, Selina Chadha. Selina, thank you very much for joining us today. What tips have you got for us then? It sounds like everybody, apart from the 3 people sitting in the studio, are just going off on the Christmas holidays.
Thank you very much for having me. Well, as you're right, it's 11 million passengers last year. We're expecting it to be much busier this year. Starting today, actually, and the rest of this weekend, we envisage this being the busiest time to fly. So the Civil Aviation Authority is putting out some advice, some top tips about flying. It's about knowing your rights, so that if your flight's delayed, if it's cancelled, what you need to know that the airline should be doing for you, but also pack safely.
Yes, what is that? I'm intrigued by pack safely.
Pack safely. So it's the little things. It's making sure that you know your baggage allowance. So before you go, know what you've actually booked and actually check the size of the luggage. For the particular airlines, it does differ. Things like lithium batteries. So lithium batteries, the really small batteries in vapes, and also charging packs. And actually, they're the things it's better to carry on with you, either on yourself or in your carry-on luggage. Things also like party poppers absolutely banned. You can't bring those. And Christmas crackers, some airlines say you can bring them, some they say you can't. If you do bring them, they need to be in their original packaging.
We had an issue at Christmas time. Obviously, people are travelling with presents that are wrapped up. We had an issue recently travelling with a wrapped-up present, and they wanted to find out what was in it, even though they'd X-rayed it. It was jewellery, by the way, but...
It's much safer to take the present unwrapped, bring the wrapping paper with you and do it on the other side. If they need to check if it's the batteries, if there's liquids in it, much better they can have a look. Don't wrap them before you go.
It's very frustrating at times, but I guess what we need to bear in mind with all of this is, I mean, it's about safety.
Absolutely.
We forget that, don't we?
I think you can do, and I think that's also some of the reasons consumers get quite frustrated about delays and cancellations. Often that's because people are trying to make sure that flying is safe, absolutely.
The one thing that always amazes me is people, especially at this time of year, I know there's a lot to do, people, but they leave so little time to get through an airport. What's the best advice? How long should you leave to get through, like a big airport like Heathrow?
Well, personally, I always leave myself 2 hours.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's some of that was about being a bit old school, where they always said be there 2 hours before. But I would say at Christmas, you've seen the pictures of the airports and how busy they are. I would be probably building in at least another hour into that.
Right.
I think you just need to be prepared for when it's busy. Getting through security is going to take a lot longer.
Right. In terms of those delays, then, and cancellations, I mean, if you get a cancellation, you know somewhere in the back of your brain that you can pursue it somehow. But even with a delay, what are you entitled to?
So if there's a delay, your airline should be looking after you. So, no matter whatever the reason for that delay, they need to be providing you with food and drink. If it's overnight, they need to be providing accommodation for you. Cancellations are different. That's where you should be entitled to a refund, or they need to make alternative travel arrangements for you.
Right. Are you entitled to any compensation?
So, in certain circumstances, you are entitled to compensation. Here's where it depends on the reasons for it. So when it's the airline's fault, then absolutely. So there are very set amounts here. For short-haul flights, it's something like £220. If it's a long-haul flight, it's £520. But it's got to be around the circumstances. So if it's about weather, if it's about air traffic control going wrong, the airlines don't need to pay.
Right.
Are you travelling anywhere for Christmas?
I'm not for Christmas. I am for New Year, but it's a surprise for my husband, so...
right, okay.
Right, no, better not. Selina, really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. And if you have got things that you want to argue out, if you're delays and all the rest of it at the airports, don't take it out on the staff.
No,
it's not their fault.
It's very easy to do, it has to be said. But it is about safety, and we do forget that as well, because it is frustrating. You're in a rush, you've got so much going on this time of year, but it is about protecting our safety.
Now, talking about safety on the roads, the Prime Minister's pledged £1.6 billion to help repair 7 million potholes across the UK.
Sir Keir hopes the major boost will allow motorists to save on damage costs and enable quicker and safer journeys for drivers.
Earlier, we spoke to the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander.
We'll be releasing 75% of this funding next year to start off with, and we withhold 25% to ensure that councils are reporting back to us on how they are using that money, because we know that some roads at the moment are like obstacle courses, aren't they? You've got huge craters in them, and so what we need to make sure is that those really big safety problems are being tackled first and foremost, but we want councils as well to think strategically about how they use this money in the best way, because it's really important that we get good value for money, and in some cases that will mean proactive road resurfacing. We're also content for this money to be used if there are broken pavements, if there are bridges that are falling down, then local councils will know what their priorities are, and it's really important that this money is used to make the biggest difference in local areas that people are actually going to see and be benefiting from.
Yeah, but the experts say to fix the problem in the UK, and I know money is an issue, but the experts say it would take an additional £3 billion to actually fix the problem. So an additional 500 million obviously is well short of the mark.
Well, this represents a 50% increase on what the previous Conservative government were spending last year. That's a really significant investment, and I think it is a sort of down payment, if you like, on what our ambition for the coming years in terms of improving the state of the roads. We know that the last Conservative government failed to invest. When I was knocking on doors at the general election 6 months ago, in slightly warmer weather than it is today, I remember this issue coming up time and time again. It costs people hundreds of pounds if they're having to go to the garage to mend broken suspensions, replace tyres. So I'm not pretending that this is a silver bullet and that everything is going to be fixed overnight. We had a one-year budget in October, and that was when Rachel Reeves announced that £500 million. It's been welcomed by organisations such as the RAC and the AA as well, because they know that drivers are fed up of these potholes which have been plaguing our roads for far too long.
Well, meanwhile, pothole expert Dave Gaster thinks much more needs to be done.
Spend on highways has reduced by about a factor of 3 over the last 30 years, which is why they've been getting worse and worse. And also, you've got a change in the laws where people have dumbed down their thinking on what this is about. And we have a situation now where 3% of the highway network cause 55% of the problems, and yet they have a single system to actually inspect and do most potholes. It just doesn't work. And part of the announcement that we've got from government today is that they want people to think about what's causing the potholes before they get all of the money.
Right.
Right. I mean, let me know. But in terms of this money, though, because it's one thing to give 1.6 billion, £500 million, you say, extra on what we've seen so far. But it's about maintaining that funding, isn't it, into the foreseeable to make sure we don't end up back where we started.
Yes, absolutely. My friend Mark Morell, Mr. Pothole, is saying we actually need £3 billion a year extra to actually get us back, and that would save £14 billion a year in costs, the damage to vehicles, the injuries to people. We've also worked on Curing Pothole Britain, which actually says if you actually just work this in a totally different way and you think about how you strategise, have your tactical inspections, your tactical working, you could actually reduce injuries and accidents and things like that. The cost of crashes on the road every year is 42 billion, and yet this only goes a tiny way to actually dealing with that. If you actually focused on reducing crashes, you could save 8 billion a year easily from that. There's also 16 billion a year cost of congestion. So you can see there's some very big numbers of waste within the government that aren't addressed yet.
Yeah, and a lot of you not impressed with that so far.
No, and lots of you are mentioning motorbikes as well. You know, I am a cyclist, you're a car driver, but for motorbikes in particular, the potholes, they can be lethal. I mean,
it's got to be sorted out. It's got beyond a joke now.
It really is. Lots of you are angry about that. And we're just talking to our travel expert because it's a busy day for getting away. And Christina messaged in, she said, 11 million flights today, 10 million of them probably going to be taken by Keir Starmer. He does have a habit of doing a bit of globe-trotting, doesn't he?
He does at the minute, yes. Right, still to come, we're going to go through all the sport with Paul.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed southbound from the A82 at the Longman roundabout to the A96 at the Raigmore interchange after an accident. There are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast because of poor weather. Tyne and Wear Metro services are suspended between Newcastle Airport Metro and Kingston Park because of overhead line problems, between Heworth and Monument because of emergency engineering works. The port of Holyhead remains closed, with sailings cancelled between Holyhead and Dublin. On the M1 in Leicestershire, the inside lanes closed northbound where a car's overturned between junction 21A north of Leicester and 22 at Ashby de la Zouch, causing delays. There are delays of up to 2 hours to stem line sailings between Fishguard and Ross Lair because of poor weather. And on the M23 in Surrey, there's a lane closed northbound after an accident between junctions 9 and 8 from Gatwick Airport to the M25.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:41. Paul's here with all the sport. Tottenham won.
Listen, I've got something I've got to say first. I've got to say something I've got to say. I found something out just now.
Yeah.
And I've never known.
Yeah.
Brussels sprouts, right?
Yeah.
It's Brussels, plural, sprout.
Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
You both knew this.
Yeah.
I thought it was Brussels sprouts. I thought it was a singular Brussels.
No, because it's after the city, Brussels.
Well, it makes sense to me now, but I had no all these years. I've only just found this out.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, but that's impossible to say. I didn't know that.
So you're with me?
I'm with
you.
You.
Thought it was Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts.
Apparently, it's Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, yeah. Even I knew that.
Wow.
And thanks for people that are telling me I look like one or electrical.
that wasn't where I was going.
Thank you very much.
I know. Anyway, Spurs.
I'm just looking them up on.
Brussels sprouts.
Actually, it's a similar colour, though.
That'd be all right.
Any case, how did Spurs do?
Spurs
did they win
won.
something?
Spurs won 4-3 against Manchester United in the Carabao Cup. It was a crazy game. It started off, Spurs are winning 3-0 up. Well, the Spurs are winning 3-0. You think this is all done and dusted. But those who are Spurs fans sometimes know better that it's not all over. Anyway, then a couple of mistakes by Fraser Forster, Spurs goalkeeper, playing out from the back, which they insist on doing, got caught twice. Then Sonny Heung-min-son scores from a corner, literally from a corner, went straight in from there. Then they get another one back. Sorry, when I say they, I'm obviously referring to Manchester United.
Yes,
it's not an us and they situation.
No bias.
I would make that clear right now. So Manchester United get, there's Ruben Amorim, that's when the fourth one went in. But then Manchester United have got a goal back, 4-3. Everybody's all over the place, and then with a minute to go, then the whistle ended up going, and then that's how it's gone through. So it's ended up 4-3. It was really entertaining. It was really entertaining for Christmas. The draw for the semi-final then of the Carabao Cup has now been made. Spurs versus Liverpool.
Oh, good luck.
And then Arsenal will play Newcastle. First game is the week commencing January the 6th, and the second game not until the 3rd of February. So you've got a month in between, which is bizarre. Oh, by the way, I've got the answer for you.
Good.
Tyson Fury.
Staring.
Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. So they've got this big fight which happens at the weekend. It's the rematch. So they've got the standoff. Now, look, this is what happened later on. Standoff was 11 minutes long, and we looked for whoever actually turned away, and it was kind of like both of them at the same time.
I agree.
So we'll get the look. I'll get that for you in an hour. But there we are.
I agree.
Brilliant. Lovely, Paul. Thank you very much indeed.
Brussels.
Right. Now, during Advent, we're counting down to Christmas Day and are hearing from ministers every single day. Here's day 20.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 20.
A number of years ago, a woman once told me how she didn't feel good enough to come into church. She didn't feel good enough to be surrounded by people she perceived to be better than her in the presence of God. She was then surprised to hear that I'm not a Christian because I'm a good person. I'm a very bad person who needed a saviour and made me a Christian. Maybe you feel the same way that she does. Maybe you think the church doors are shut or God himself is shut off from you. Maybe you feel unworthy to enter his presence. And there is some truth in that. God is holy, and because he is holy, he requires moral perfection to enter his presence, which means he is out of bounds for everyone. Everyone is shut off from him. So what does God do? At Christmas time, 2,000 years ago, he sent his son to die on the cross in our place, to rise to a new life, to open the door for heaven, to free us from the prison of darkness in the shadow of death. So now, because of what he's done, we can come into the presence of God and enjoy him forever. This is Emmanuel, God with us.
Oh, it's just wonderful.
I really
Wonderful.
love them.
Yeah.
I really, really love them. It makes you feel Christmassy, proper.
Yeah.
OK, and if you want to see more of those as Christmas approaches, you can go to gbnews.com/advent.
Now, if you're in the search of some winter sun, here are the top European holiday destinations forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
A Jaguar has ditched its growling big cat logo as part of what can only be described as a woke rebrand. The badge that has been used for decades, look at it, beautiful, on the bonnets of luxury cars has been swapped for a curved geometric J badge. They've also released a brand new advert, look at it, for their rebrand, which prompted Elon Musk to ask if the company actually sold cars. I thought this was a wind-up. It's not. It's true. And joining me now to discuss this is the motoring journalist, Amanda Stratton. Amanda, what on earth is going on at Jaguar? The car of James Bond, Batman, Arthur Daley has gone off the scale woke. Please make me make sense of it.
The E-Type is an absolutely iconic car, and it's important that people remember that, in fact, in its heyday, Jaguar was an incredibly prestigious brand, more so really than other British brands like Aston Martin, for example. You know, people in the industry are left sort of scratching their heads because you need to do something bold, you need to do something that catches people's attention, but you also need to stay true to who you are and what you are, and I'm not sure that this is it.
Amanda, that could be an advert for anything. It could be cat food. It could be Karl Lagerfeld. It could be literally anything apart from a Jag. Well, I mean, honestly, OK, we're talking about it. So we are talking about it, but we're not talking about it for the right reasons, are we?
And I think if I was going to be speculative here, I would like to think that this is actually all part of a cunning plan to get everybody talking about it. Yeah. So when they do launch the first new car that we're going to see, which, you know, people have been waiting, as I say, since 2001.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, let's see what's making the news with James Price and Scarlett Maguire. Good morning. Let's kick off with the King's cancer treatment, which we're told, James, is going to continue into the new year.
Yeah, it's a funny one, this, isn't it? We're told it's not prostate cancer, but the treatment is continuing over a longer period of time. It's a funny one. I mean, I'm not keen to speculate on the inner workings of His Majesty. I kind of prefer it when the royal family is a bit more mysterious and all that, as part of our glorious constitution. But it is wonderful that he's in good health, and I suppose that there's so much being talked about it because it will encourage more and more people who otherwise might say, as we were talking, Scott, off air, oh, I'm too busy to go and get looked at, I'm too busy for this. Look, if His Majesty the King can go and get these things tested and can be open and brave at talking about it, maybe that would be helpful for more people going and getting tested in 2025.
You know what? I just wish, I mean, speaking of, sort of several loved ones that have gone through cancer only after being nagged to go and get checked, I really wish Charles had been a bit more honest about what it was. Yeah. So if it was prostate cancer, it would encourage many men to go, right, I need to go and get myself checked.
Well, I mean, presumably it wasn't because, I mean, he says it wasn't. I mean, what I feel really strongly is that no man should be dying of prostate cancer and no woman should be dying of breast cancer because they should go and get checked. Yeah. Those are two cancers, actually, that a lot of research has been done, a lot of things, and it's really, really important that if one has a lump or anything, because the thing about cancer is it doesn't go away. No. It just gets worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Sticking with the royals, Scarlett, can we have a look at the Prince and Princess of Wales in the sun?
Right.
We've been wished a Merry Christmas.
Wished a Merry Christmas, and it was supposed to cheer all of us mere subjects up. But this photo of them and their family showing, I do have to say, Kate with her lustrous hair. I mean, clearly she looks absolutely gorgeous, and they're all very happy, which is wonderful.
Well, that's nice, isn't it? Does it cheer us up?
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
You sound slightly cynical to me, Scarlett.
Well, I think to pretend that there aren't PR operations going on.
Of course there are.
The thing I find with that, thank you. The thing I find with this, as someone that used to put newspapers together, it's a very strange page one, the way they've done it. And I'm not sure if it actually works. Is it making you feel happy?
Everything about the royals makes me happy. I mean, this is only the second best Christmas present we're getting from them, of course, because the Crown estates that His Majesty owns and all the lands there, they contributed £1.1 billion to the Exchequer this year that will go into paying for the potholes that we talked about before, all these things. It's just another example of the great things that the royal family give to us.
Well, very right too. Very right too.
I feel like I should stand up like that for the national anthem.
That's very good. No, very good.
I just wonder how many billions of pounds that means that they have. If
they get about 8% of it. I worked it out this week.
Right. Well,
but it is nice. I mean, look, she's had a horrible year.
They're putting money into the economy.
Yeah.
Right. Very
Scarlett,
good. Very
you
good.
Can't argue
very
with
good.
that.
Shame that we're not allowed to know, how much was in people's wills. And how much? I mean, it was like...
I don't want to know what's in your will.
When Prince Charles... Well, you would. My will... When I die, my will is public property.
Is it, really?
Yeah, it is. All of us.
Yeah. You can actually, yeah,
Seriously?
you can actually. It's probate, isn't it? You can go and have a look.
You can go and have a look, yeah.
That'll give me something to do on
Yeah.
the days off. That's quite...
Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Her dying, so you can go and look at her will.
Go and see how,
Absolutely.
go and see how much money they had. Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, no, but it's like so when Prince Harry complained about suddenly being cut off by his father, aged 30-something, some of us were actually earning our own living at that stage, you thought, yeah, but your mum, Princess Diana, left you a few million.
Yeah.
So, you know, some of us could live on a few
And
million.
the Queen Mother left him a lot of money.
Yeah, no, she did as well, and that's all.
On that talk of money, we've run out of time. But what time is it? It's 7:50, so we will see you in the next hour.
Yes.
Right.
Look forward to that. We'll give you a good run out in the next hour. Thanks very much indeed. Right, should we get a check on the weather for you? Here's Aidan.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a fine start out there for many of us, but the weather turns increasingly wet from the northwest through the day, increasingly windy as well, although not as windy as it's expected to be through the weekend. Initially, some sunshine for the Midlands, parts of the east and southeast of England, but increasingly cloud and rain spread southeast through the day. A wet start for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland. As the rain clears, we've got blustery showers moving in. And by the afternoon, it's Western and Northern England, as well as Wales, where we're likely to see spells of rain. 11 Celsius in the south, feeling colder further northwest, where we've got a gusty northwesterly breeze and those showers pushing in. But for anyone that's heading off this evening's rush, it looks unsettled across the Midlands, the east and southeast of England. The rain and wind are clearing, so some clearer spells pushing into Wales and the southwest, as well as northern England by 6 p.m. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, will see frequent showers at this stage and a gusty wind. Temperatures of 6 or 7 Celsius. But all in all, the wind is tending to ease and clear spells will form more widely, particularly across central and southeastern England, where those clear spells will be lengthy overnight, and as a result, temperatures will drop away to 5 to 7 Celsius. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of the west of England and Wales, it turns wet and windy by the end of the night once again, and as a result, temperatures will rise by dawn. It's an unsettled start for many then, and the spells of rain are moving eastwards, petering out as they push into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but staying damp for much of the morning in these areas. Brighter skies arrive into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland by the afternoon, but at this stage the wind's really picking up, 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts. 80 or more for the west and north of Scotland could cause significant transport disruption throughout Saturday afternoon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed southbound from the A82 at the Longman roundabout to the A96 at the Raigmore interchange in Inverness after an accident. There are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Carrarine and Belfast because of poor weather. Tyne-and-Wear Metro services are suspended between Newcastle Airport Metro and Kingston Park because of overhead line problems, and they're suspended between Heworth and Monument for emergency engineering works with a limited bus replacement service operating. Now, the Port of Holyhead remains closed for emergency repairs to storm damage, with sailings suspended between Holyhead and Dublin, and there are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Fishguard and Rosslare because of the weather. And on the M26 in Kent, it's taking around 10 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The budget has caused the economy to stagnate, according to the Bank of England.
Yes, Andrew Bailey has downgraded growth forecasts and says businesses are cutting costs and raising prices after Rachel Reeves' raid on employers' national insurance.
Well, economists say they expect zero growth in the final 3 months of the year.
And the King's cancer treatment will continue into next year. Palace sources have said his treatment has been moving in a positive direction and there is a sense of optimism.
Peter Mandelson makes a comeback. He's expected to be named as the UK's ambassador to the United States. The former New Labour spin doctor will be the Prime Minister's link to Donald Trump.
And potholes. A hope for the country's potholes as the government set out a roadmap to fixing the country's roads with a £1.6 billion budget boost for road maintenance. But is it enough?
Giselle Pellico's ex-husband is jailed for 20 years after he drugged and raped her, inviting dozens of strangers to abuse her over nearly a decade.
And the Great British Getaway, the country gears up for the busiest travel day of the year. We will bring you the latest on disruption and the areas to avoid.
And after a year of underwhelming brand launches, Netflix flops and all sorts of stuff going on, we're asking if we should start to feel sorry for Harry and Meghan.
I wonder what you think about that one. And it's a very vegan Christmas as demand for plant-based festive foods spikes. Later we'll find out which veggie options are making it to the Christmas table.
And in the sport, well, it's a crazy night in North London. Spurs beat Manchester United 4-3. I'm not smiling, 4-3 in the Carabao Cup. Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk have an 11-minute face-off before their fight tomorrow. And the champion from 2 years ago is knocked out of the World Darts Championship in the first round.
Lots of people getting away for Christmas over the next few days, but the weather is looking increasingly windy. I'll have the full details coming up in the forecast soon.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I love that Paul Coy is trying to remain sort of balanced on this, but the fact your voice has gone because you spent all night going, yeah!
I wasn't, I swear.
Come on.
I wasn't. OK, it was a little bit. It was a little bit.
Balanced, unbiased sports reporting.
That's how I like it to be. Completely on the fence.
Yes.
I won't...
No bias whatsoever from Quaker.
Tell you what, it's blooming brilliant, though, isn't it? I mean, to be honest, to be honest, I think it's fantastic news for Spurs when they really needed a boost.
But the thing is, it's Liverpool
next
in the next round.
Yeah.
You do.
And that's the semi-final. And a lot of Spurs fans are thinking, oh, maybe Arsenal. Maybe is it going to be Newcastle? I know, what do you do? I know Chopper's going to be very... I think he's probably happier than I am. The fact that...
Final in March when we won the Carling Cup. Liverpool won last season.
Were you saying...
The last game...
Don't worry, lads, it's only Spurs. Is that what you were saying?
Well, it was Chelsea then, only Chelsea then, but only Spurs this time. Easy, isn't it?
Yeah, well, West Ham and Liverpool always stuff us, so I can't even talk.
Here's a thought, because obviously we're gearing up for the big fight tomorrow night.
Yes.
Why don't you two have a bus stop in the studio?
Or a stare-off.
No, bus stops.
No,
bus stop.
Let's get fists involved for the football match.
Let's make it an arm wrestle, shall we? We'll have one of those.
I think
because if it's a battle of wits, I'm done. You'll be all over me in no time whatsoever. So let's just maybe do that.
I quite like the staring thing, though.
Do you then
I think
quite like the staring
stare
thing?
into each other's eyes.
But the thing is, though, is it look away or is it blink? What are the rules on this?
I think we can blink. You've got to blink.
He was blinking, I think. I saw looking closely. He was blinking
it's
a
like
bit.
that because already I'm feeling a bit like that already.
Who looks away first?
Yeah.
It was Orcs.
11 minutes. I mean, for crying out loud.
I'm all for Tyson Fury, though.
Yeah, are you?
I'm a Tyson Fury man.
He's fitter than he was last time, and he's going to take it more seriously. None of all this dancey, jumping around business.
And he's wearing
business.
He's wearing a decent hat.
That's a good hat.
So there you go.
Can't find the hat, though.
We'll see you later. We're going to talk to Chopper in just a minute, because the Bank of England has warned the economy is stagnating following the budget.
Who'd have thunk it? Economists have said this is due to businesses raising prices and cutting jobs in order to contend with the changes.
Well, officials now expect, wait for it, zero growth in the final 3 months of the year. Well, it's not a recession.
No.
It's not negative growth, is it?
No, that's coming in the next quarter. We're now joined by GB News political editor, the wonderful Christopher Hope.
Good morning.
Yes, you had a podcast, I think, haven't you?
Yes.
You never tell me about your podcast every 5 seconds. But this isn't good. Well, this is not surprising, is it?
Back in the election campaign before July, Keir Starmer said he would fund tax cuts with growth. And now he's got zero growth in the last quarter, and the Bank of England is saying there's pressure downwards to hire people because it's more expensive. It's gone up by 2% now to just the taxation on employers' national insurance. So perhaps no surprise that employers are holding back.
You know how politics works, Chris.
A bit.
And we spoke to the minister this morning, and you could talk to any minister, and they would say the same thing. Growth is our #1 priority. Now, why are they still pushing that message at a time when there is no growth as a result of their policies?
They just desperately get the economy growing. They think that by doing this, by taking these tough choices now, without sounding like a politician, that's what they say to us all the time. They can get there. They want it to grow. But as I say to everyone, I want to get up tomorrow morning and run a park run. But if I do that, it might be a miracle, although I like doing it. But, I mean, in terms of I want to do it and can it actually happen, that's the question. I mean, concerns about this, no question, because it had been a better forecast under the Tory government. Of course, Labour still say they've made this £22 billion black hole. They've made choices to pay out money on the infected blood scheme and elsewhere that the Tories may have done further down the track. So it's going to be difficult, I think. And
but are we hurtling towards a point, if we end up with zero growth and all the extra challenges which are facing businesses and all the rest of it with this, are we hitting a point where all the things that the government was trying to avoid doing and a lot of cuts to public service and things might have to happen anyway?
Yeah, but they're trying to avoid austerity, but we are looking to quite a difficult, what they call a spending round in Whitehall. They're going to be setting out the figures in next late spring, 5% cuts across the board. Now, we haven't even had the argument about what you want to see cut. We hear it this morning, money being spent on potholes. There's already one forming in our road, by the way. I can see it starting. I'm watching it very closely. But 1.6 billion for potholes, £500 million more than expected. We would know from our viewers and listeners at GB News how worried they are about potholes. If you're driving in wet weather in the dark, you can't see them, and suddenly you hit one, puncture. And it's hundreds of millions across England today. So they want to try and spend the money in the right way, show things are being spent in the right way, but there will be cuts next year to budgets.
Rachel Reeves did promise that she wouldn't be coming back for any more tax raids. But if we go into recession, she's going to have to break that, isn't she?
She did say that, and then she said, I can't write 4 years' worth of budgets today. So they're saying one thing, and then they're also saying things happen. COVID happened after 3 months of last government, the invasion of Ukraine. Those two things cost £500 billion to our economy. So things happen, but it's very, very tight. They're hoping those scale of spending won't be required.
The one thing we're getting on... Sorry, Stephen. The one thing we're getting on here from literally everybody this morning, gbnews.com/you'll say, if they just now, even Labour supporters, they do not believe a word that any of the politicians are saying.
And the benefit of that is Nigel Farage, who's not in government. So I think that it's so tight out there, I think, that, Labour are being now cast into the same aspersions about them as the Tory party. Well, they have done things they hadn't planned to do or said they were going to do. The WASPy Women is this week's controversy. It was not, the pledge was not there to pay £10 billion to those women in their 50s and 60s for losing out on some of the state pension. That was not in the manifesto, but it was in previous manifestos, and the internet is awash of videos of senior politicians. You're rolling your eyes, Stephen, about this.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just they've no sense, have they? Because even, I mean, it's the. They've been naive in opposition.
Yes.
I think, when they've been holding up the signs and all the rest of it, because it doesn't go away.
No.
20 years ago, you would have done it, a picture, and it would have vanished in the paper.
We've seen it elsewhere.
Now it's always there.
Elsewhere with Donald Trump, remarks in opposition have come back to Holland, particularly David Lammy, now the Foreign Secretary. There's news out today on Trump, of course. We're going to hear later. Peter Mandelson confirmed as the new UK ambassador, and that's a big moment. I mean, I think looking at it, probably, maybe, it could be a clever one. I mean, yes, he's a former European Trade Commissioner, a business secretary, but he's also political. So he's in this sort of role where he's trying to help Trump do a deal with us for a trade deal to remove tariffs that he wants to impose on the UK's imports to the States.
But it's a funny one, isn't it? Because you mentioned the word Mandelson over here. He had a very checkered career. That you sort of have an inward groan. But actually, when you look at what he might be able to, it's probably not a bad choice for the job.
I think that's right. I mean, it's the third coming of Peter Mandelson in that sense. I mean, he failed. He was removed twice from the government, then became a EU commissioner in Tony Blair's time. You know, it's complicated. I think we're waiting to see what Donald Trump thinks. The choreography has been quite interesting. Behind the scenes, our government's reaching out to Washington. We saw Morgan McSweeney go over there, Jonathan Powell, the National Security Advisor, on the 3rd of December. Then the phone call 2 nights ago, and now this. I mean, I think it's going to be fascinating if it comes off. Nigel Farage, for his position, he's the Trump whisperer in UK politics. He's out over there at the weekend in Mar-a-Lago. He has offered to help forge the relationship between the Labour government and Trump. You know, Farage, for all his critics, is a patriot. He wants to get a better deal for UK. He loves this country and he wants to improve it, so he has offered on the floor of the House of Commons to support Keir Starmer in this.
And could Trump refuse to work with Mandelson?
Well, that's why I'm watching his Twitter feed or Truth Social, wherever he posts. I mean, you would assume the phone call on Wednesday night was laying the pitch for this, saying, don't tweet anything, Donald. It's about to happen. Let's see if we can make this work. And to be fair to Mandelson, for a Labour politician, he has been saying, let's get closer to Farage, listen to him more, reach out to Trump. And I think this choice that this PM has got, Keir Starmer, to go towards the European Union or to Trump, that is the story of the past, of the next 6 months. He's got a summit with Ursula von der Leyen at the EU. He'll meet all EU 27 leaders on the 3rd of February. He'll cosy up to the EU while trying to be cozying up to the States. Not easy.
I sort of wonder if, and this is pure speculation, but whether someone like Lord Mandelson is going to try and pull Farage on side.
Give him an informal role.
An informal role, and under the headline role, because he knows he's the one who can do business. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think he might. I think he might. You know, I've been in touch with him this morning, trying to get him on the channel. We're doing our best to interview him for us all, to hear what he wants to say. But I think it's an interesting appointment, the first political appointment to that role in decades. And I think with Donald Trump coming in on January 20th, that kind of political nous is what you need.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. Christopher, really good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Watch this space, actually. It's a good point.
Yeah, I think Nigel... I mean, it'd be crazy not to include Nigel Farage somewhere along the line just because of how he's connected.
Yeah, very much so.
But I say, doing it, it's got to be done quietly, hasn't it? I think, just for the sake of the government's reputation.
Very interesting. Watch this space, eh? OK, drivers who are planning holiday getaways have been warned to expect long traffic jams due to record levels of travellers. Today is expected to be the busiest day on the roads, with an estimated 23.7 million of us planning to travel. This is due to be more than the current busiest day on record, which was back in 2010.
Yeah, well, of course, it means there are going to be issues on the roads and on the trains and at the airports as well, so there's no easy way out of it. Let's talk to our national news reporter, Charlie Peters. Good morning to you, Charlie. Where are you and what's going on?
Morning, Stephen. Morning, Dawn. I'm outside Waterloo Station, and gone are the days of this station heaving on a Friday. It's been pretty quiet this morning because there's a lot of working from home, obviously, and so Fridays are pretty quiet when it's commuting into the city. But that's not what people are concerned about today. It's getting out of London town and indeed driving home for Christmas across the country that has attracted so much concern from rail and travel bosses. As you said, Dawn, 23.7 million anticipated drivers according to the AA today, and they've put up quite a few hotspots for traffic, including the entirety of West London, the M25 around Heathrow, the M4, M5 interchange by Bristol, and also the M5, M6 interchange near Birmingham. But it's not just the roads, it's also the rails that are attracting a lot of concern. There is strike action taking place on lots of rail engineering, which is going to put additional pressure on those roads. Avanti West Coast has announced recently fresh strike action to take place in the final hours of 2024, which will continue actually until the May bank holiday into next year. There'll be no services between Crewe and Liverpool, a reduced service from Crewe and Manchester from Saturday, December the 28th and Friday, January the 3rd. Mick Lynch, the Secretary General of the RMT Union, has said that sustained strike action is now the only way to focus management's minds on reaching a negotiated settlement, but lots of Christmas and New Year revellers affected by that move. Other limitations are Liverpool Street Station being closed from Christmas Day until January the 2nd, and no trains from Paddington on the 27th and the 28th. And finally, Christmas getaways for people looking to leave Britain. An estimated 4 million people are expected to be leaving the country and getting some winter sun over the Christmas period. I've just been checking. There are quite a few last-minute deals available for those who are thinking about disappearing away from the gloom of Britain this time. If you want to add to that 4 million, then by all means check online, and I might share some of those top tips in the 9 if you're lucky.
Oh, well,
thank
we've got
you.
fingers crossed. Charlie, thank you.
You know what I'll do? I'll just sit in on your sofa with a nice mulled wine or something. It's Christmas, and watch GB News.
There you go. Telly doesn't go on in our house over Christmas.
What? You talk to each other?
Yes,
You
we
play
actually
games?
talk to each other and
Do
play
you play
board
ga-
games.
Oh, you play
and
board
things.
games?
Yeah. So no, I love it. It's great. It's good family time. Anyway, let's get away from the nasty lady and have a look at the weather with Aidan McGivern.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a fine start out there for many of us, but the weather turns increasingly wet from the northwest through the day, increasingly windy as well, although not as windy as it's expected to be through the weekend. Initially, some sunshine for the Midlands, parts of the east and southeast of England, but increasingly cloud and rain spread southeast through the day. A wet start for Western Scotland and Northern Ireland. As the rain clears, we've got blustery showers moving in. And by the afternoon, it's Western and Northern England, as well as Wales, where we're likely to see spells of rain. 11 Celsius in the south, feeling colder further northwest, where we've got a gusty northwesterly breeze and those showers pushing in. But for anyone that's heading off this evening's rush, it looks unsettled across the Midlands, the east and southeast of England. The rain and wind are clearing, so some clearer spells pushing into Wales and the southwest, as well as northern England by 6 p.m. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, will see frequent showers at this stage and a gusty wind. Temperatures of 6 or 7 Celsius. But all in all, the wind is tending to ease and clear spells will form more widely, particularly across central and southeastern England, where those clear spells will be lengthy overnight, and as a result, temperatures will drop away to 5 to 7 Celsius. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of the west of England and Wales, it turns wet and windy by the end of the night once again, and as a result, temperatures will rise by dawn. It's an unsettled start for many then, and the spells of rain are moving eastwards, petering out as they push into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but staying damp for much of the morning in these areas. Brighter skies arrive into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland by the afternoon, but at this stage the wind's really picking up, 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts. 80 or more for the west and north of Scotland could cause significant transport disruption throughout Saturday afternoon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh, sorry. We're back.
Yes, we're back, and it's time for you to win, potentially, a whole load of cash, because £50,000 is up for grabs in tax-free cash. It's our biggest ever prize.
Yeah.
It could all be yours if you enter. Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Freaks me out.
Good. What? Me?
No, that.
Oh, right.
Because there's one of our previous winners who was like, oh, it was really great. So they sounds just like my father-in-law.
Oh.
I was thinking, did my father-in-law win a whole load of money?
Would he tell you? Would he tell you?
Yes, he would. Yeah.
Are you sure?
But honestly, it sounds just like my father-in-law.
Good luck in any case. That'll be a cracking start to the new year, especially if you are Stephen's father-in-law.
Oh, yes, please, yeah, win 50 grand, share it around.
From somewhere exotic. You wouldn't share it with Stephen, would you?
No, I wouldn't blame you. Right, coming up, we're going to bring the latest on the King's cancer treatment update. The Palace have released a statement today. We'll bring you all the latest in just a moment.
Yeah.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Well, drinkers have been warned about a drop in the quality of French wines after poor weather conditions hit this year's grape harvest. Winemakers across France will make 240 million fewer bottles of wine this year, the country's farming ministry said on Tuesday. So should we think of switching from French to English? I'm joined now by sommelier and founder of Inflorescence Wines, Jacinta Madison-Williams. Hello, Jacinta.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. First of all, let's just think about the poor French. Has this been a fairly universal weather catastrophe for France?
It has. Kind of across the board, we're about 22% down on last year's crops, which is quite significant. I think it's like one of the 4 years over the last century that have been this low. So.
And it's affected both quality and quantity?
I would say more so quantity. There's always ways of counteracting quality. It depends if people are desperate to make wine. They can obviously push out more watered down grapes. There's been a lot of rain, if you hadn't noticed. Not only in France, we felt it here too. But lots of frost, supercell hailstorms have completely wiped out some crops. So in some cases, there's nothing to make. In other cases, it's just really watered down grapes and you want to pick earlier to make sure you're avoiding all those rains. But I would say more so it's quantity. But saying that, France is still the biggest producer of wine in the world. It might be taken over by Spain this year, but as a consumer, don't panic. We're not going to run out of wine. And we obviously have lots of lovely wine growing here now in England. So whether we do make a little jump for a bit to English wine, but there's definitely still lots out there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Brace yourselves at 8:23 because Harry and Meghan have been the subject of criticism all year round because of the failure of various projects. The Netflix shows haven't done well, and there's been this underwhelming launch. Is it actually launched yet?
Yeah, no one noticed.
American Riviera Orchard, which is the lifestyle shop thing.
It's like them trying to do a Gwyneth Paltrow thing, but without some of the sexier bits and pieces. Any case, that continues. Stop it. That continued this week with the Sussexes being mocked for their Christmas card that failed to mention the word Christmas.
Oh, did it? What did it say? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
It's
They're
very
America.
American.
So we are asking, as he said, brace yourselves, should we start to feel sorry for Harry and Meghan?
Well, we're joined by editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, and royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Good to see you both. Charlotte, should we feel sorry for them?
I am actually starting to feel quite sorry for Prince Harry now. I don't always defend him, I have to say, but it's got to the point now where it's become a bit of a national sport to bash him. And, I mean, everyone's done it, but the thing is that everything's going wrong for them now. They might even lose their Netflix deal next year. And it just feels like it's Christmas. We've got to feel sorry for these people now. And, you know, just hope. We can't actually wish people to actually fail in life. You know, we've got to, have some hope that they might succeed eventually. But every single thing they've done this year has gone wrong.
Richard, they have this gilded lifestyle in a California mansion. They don't worry about money, and they've made a lot of money by having a go at Harry's family. I'm sorry, does that make you feel sorry for them?
Well, this is the thing, you see. I believe that they ought to take responsibility for their own actions. And what they're finding now, this is what has become increasingly apparent, especially recently, is if they are not attacking the royal family in some way, one thinks of Oprah, one thinks of Spare, one thinks of the Harry and Meghan programme for Netflix, there isn't that much interest in them. It's one thing going on faux royal tours to Colombia and Nigeria. Those went relatively well. And then they experimented by these solo appearances, and some of those went well. But on the other hand, what we've seen with American Riviera Orchard, their trademark issues, which have never arisen, so there's been a delay there. Regarding the rift with the royal family, unfortunately, and this is a year, of course, of serious illness with King Charles and the Princess of Wales battling cancer, there's been no progress there. Indeed, the rift remains as wide as ever. And as for the most recent offering with Netflix, and remember the absolutely pivotal thing in their lives, I think, in the next years, will they get this Netflix contract renewed, or will there be some arrangement? And that is Polo. Anyone could have told them that with the elitist sport and the series, where they hardly appear, would be a flop, and it certainly attracted the ire of critics, and it won't be drawing viewers. What do they plan next? Well, we'll have to see, but I don't feel sorry for them.
No, it's interesting. Look, just so people don't accuse us of getting rid of someone who is trying to defend Harry and Meghan, unfortunately, Charlotte Griffiths' line has dropped out, so we can't hear any more from her. But in the meantime, you mentioned what has been a difficult year, Richard. We have had an update from the palace about the King's treatment, saying they're very optimistic, but the cancer treatment will continue into the new year. What are we meant to take away from that?
Well, essentially, of course, this was diagnosed after his enlarged prostate operation in January. In February, and then the first major public appearance was at Easter, and then subsequent to that, he was able to start public engagements and then most recently, of course, paused the treatment. So the successful tour of Australia, Samoa, and of course his opening of Chogum went ahead. Now, what we're meant to make of it, of course, I think is this is good news. It's not unusual for treatment, apparently, to continue for some months. And what the emphasis is on is very much as near back to normal as possible. Spring and autumn tours. These are, for Britain, royal tours abroad are the best use of soft power you could possibly have. So that is very good news. And obviously this will be monitored and obviously subject to medical supervision. But I mean, the King, I'm sure, is a most impatient patient. We know he's a workaholic and he's had, obviously, and this has been, we know, frustrating. He's had to balance things clearly, but his doctors obviously are pleased. The line in this is positive, even though the treatment continues.
Richard, I'm curious, why have they told us this? They didn't need to actually tell us. I mean, you know, he's doing his full duties, he's working hard. We didn't need to know this. I'm curious as to why.
Well, you're absolutely right. He's always continued the essential duties. But the idea is to keep us informed. I mean, the medical bulletins from the palace, how often that they're given and how often we hear, this has been a subject of controversy, as you know, particularly in the early part of this year regarding the Princess of Wales's health. And it sets the scene for what's hoped and intended to be what we see in the next year. So from that point of view, I think it's undoubtedly a positive development. And I think you've done so remarkably well. I mean, if anybody happened just to see the photographs, the footage of some of his engagements, I think they'd really be very surprised to hear that he had cancer. So this has clearly been, I mean, a deeply difficult year, but equally Queen Camilla has been such a splendid support and he seems to be doing extremely well.
Yeah, well, I think it is something to be positive about, so it would seem. And as I say, they're both seeming very good spirits. Richard, always good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. OK, well, don't go anywhere because it's still to come. Paul Coit will be here with all your latest sports news and he may just mention Tottenham Hotspur.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed southbound off the A96 at the Raigmore interchange in Inverness after an accident. There are delays of up to 2 hours for Stena Line sailings between Cairn Ryan and Belfast because of poor weather. On the M2 heading out of Belfast, it's down to a single lane at junction 1A for the A2, just before the M2 becomes the M3, where a car's broken down causing queues. Tyne-and-Wear Metro services are suspended between Newcastle Airport Metro and Kingston Park, and also between Heworth and Monument. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down at junction 12. The M60 at the Eccles interchange. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for repairs, with sailing suspended between Holyhead and Dublin, and there are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Fishguard and Rosslare because of poor weather conditions.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Paul's got the sport. It's 8:33. Good morning.
Good morning.
Tottenham
4, Manchester United 3. So Spurs are through to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup. It was a crazy game. Spurs were 3 up. And then in Tottenham fashion, you never know what's going to happen. Manchester United come back with 2 goals, a couple of mistakes from Fraser Forster, the goalkeeper. And then Heung-min Son scores from a corner, actually literally from a corner. Then Manchester United score again, and then time was up. Thank goodness. Ange Postecoglou. Shall we hear from Ange?
Yes.
We love Ange. Is he going to look down? Is he going to look up? What's he going to say? Here's the Spurs manager from last night.
Yeah, it should have been a lot more comfortable than it ended up being. But having said that, I just still can't get away from the fact that, you know, this group of players is just doing an unbelievable job at the moment to get us through this. And, you know, the fact that we again scored 4 goals, again, we played some outstanding football. We got tired, obviously, in the second half because, like I said, we've just got a small number of players we keep putting out there. And I just think, obviously, made it tighter than the game should have been, but still so proud of the players' efforts.
Just in case you're wondering, he's on a very high table, and that's where everybody's sitting down there.
What's he actually looking at down there?
I'm not
Just
really
concentrating.
sure. Yeah, he's concentrating.
Has Ruben Amorim won a match since he's been Man United manager?
Yes, he has. Yeah, the thing is, it's like
doesn't feel like it.
With Spurs and Manchester United, neither of the supporters really knew what was going to happen. So it could have won by 4, the other could have won by 4.
Yeah.
But it was incredibly entertaining, I think, even though Manchester United fans went away unhappy. There were moments when they're thinking, because it's all about the momentum that kept going, then it went the other way, and it was really entertaining.
How long did the game go on for, Coity? I mean, football matches now last at least 99 minutes.
I think, there was 6 minutes added on the end.
That's the thing.
6 minutes too long for a lot of us.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
But the draw now for the semi-final draw's been made, so that's going to be Spurs versus Liverpool, and Arsenal will play Newcastle. January the 6th is the first leg, and they're going to wait until the start of February for the next one. So usually it's like within a week or 2 weeks. It's a month.
Yeah, but you're doomed
until the second game.
Mate, I'm sorry, but you are doomed.
You know what?
Yes,
you do kind of worry. You do kind of worry.
It's
but
Liverpool, come on.
I have every
Football's football. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Every faith.
Should we talk about the boxing?
Oh, let's look at
the standoff again. Tyson Fury is fighting in Riyadh against Alexander Usyk, which happens tomorrow night.
He's a lot taller than Usyk, isn't he?
He is a lot taller, but that's the thing about Tyson Fury. He's an unbelievable boxer, and he moves so well for someone that's so tall. The guy behind them, this is what I don't know what he's doing there. He's just standing there watching them. This went on for actually 11 minutes. They kept facing... Oh, wait, see, it says 11 minutes. They're just facing eye to eye. If you listen on the radio, if you can just imagine that...
dull, isn't it?
Looking down. We're waiting... Look, even the guy behind is laughing, waiting for something to happen. By the way, we're going to... I hope you're all right now, because we're going to run the whole 11 minutes.
Oh, excellent.
Just to see if anything happens. Eventually... Then, look, this is towards the end. There's a little bit of trash talk going on, which always Tyson gets involved in. And then and there's now scenes where everybody's around the outside, and eventually they just move away from each other. So nobody actually steps away.
Right.
It's a lot of build-up for nothing.
Well, I don't... When you say for nothing... What do you mean? What, for tomorrow?
No, but for that, they're just to walk away. All that 11 minutes of intense staring... Stephen.
What do you want them to do? Start hitting each other?
They're not going to start punching now.
Bit of a light
Sean,
shot.
you've got to wait for the next game. You've got to wait for tomorrow night.
It's building up. I'd love to know what the trash talk was. I'm sure we probably can't play
Well,
it,
I've got some of it here, but I can use like, and, I, you, and if you don't, I will. That's what I've got.
Right.
And then you can fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blanks.
Fill in the
blanks.
Now,
Excellent.
the other thing, the future of golf,
Yes.
TGL Golf. This is... There's been talk about this. This was supposed to happen last year. Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy and this new indoor golf thing. There's a golf thing, and it was in a tent, and the tent blew down last year, and they had to cancel it. But the idea is that they will drive into a big screen. It will then there we are. Look at this. This is simulated. So this is the first time we've actually seen it in action.
Right.
So the drive goes to the screen. Now, the screen is enormous, and there thousands of people will stand and watch. So once the drive goes into the screen, there we are, and it's like most simulators.
Yeah.
Then the ball lands on the green. Now, there's an actual green which not made out of grass, but it moves around. So once the ball, then they place a ball on a green, and then it's got all these springs and goodness knows what else.
Make it into the right texture.
Yeah, different undulations,
Right,
etc. So hopefully we'll see a bit of that once the drives are made. And there's 6 teams.
I have literally no idea what you've just said.
So it's
Now
like
look at this. Look, that's a real bunker.
Yeah.
And there's the green. Now this is all indoors. So they drive dawn at the screen,
right,
and then the simulator works out how far they've hit it, and then the ball moves on to another part, which is either, as you can see in the bunker, or onto a green, and then they play their next shot, but the actual putting is done on a real green. You got me?
I get that. I think that might be quite interesting.
I think it is too.
But you do tech, so you understand this.
Yeah, but it just means that you can watch basically the same stuff without having to walk for...
Exactly, and you can watch it from the side. And at first I was thinking, well, I'm not really sure. It's going to be like a big video game. But look at that green. So the green, as they step away, it will then move around because obviously that rolls right. And then for the next hole, there'll be movements on the green and then they'll putt again. So you can actually watch the golf from being indoors. And I think and all the top golfers are involved, 6 teams of 4, and it gets underway in Florida in January. I like the look of it.
I was a sceptic, but I quite like it.
And did they win a load of money by doing this as well?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay,
It's
that's what I thought might be.
It's all about money involved. But it is something different, and I think, you know...
You've got to evolve, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sold it very well.
Well, thank you very much.
Right.
Thanks,
You're
Rory.
out of time.
Right, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else to give you, so
Good,
it's perfect timing.
Just as well. Right, Paul, thank you very much
Have a lovely
indeed.
weekend.
Cheers, Quentin, thank you. Oh, right, some winter sun might be needed, especially for me after that. Here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations for you.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there. If you're heading off looking for the sun ahead of Christmas, it's largely fine in Spain but unsettled in Greece, whilst the winds feature highly on Saturday in the Canary Islands with some showers moving through here. Some wet weather for Gibraltar, but for much of Spain, Balearics in particular, lighter winds and some sunshine. A breeze blowing through Italy and into Greece with some heavy rain here, and it stays showery in Greece throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Oh, sorry, I was just checking I was checking my Twitter. I didn't know we were coming back. We've got the papers in a minute with James and Scarlett, so don't go anywhere.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Joining me now is food historian and author of Christmas with Dickens, Pen Vogler. Pen, let's start with Christmas Carol. Did Christmas Carol, A Christmas Carol, change Britain's view of Christmas?
I think it did enormously. Before then,
people were beginning to think, as they do now, that Christmas might be being a little bit commercial. It was too much food and drink, not enough kind of seriousness or not enough kind of love and family. And what Dickens did with A Christmas Carol was show people who were coming to the cities, who were kind of losing their rural history, a new way of celebrating Christmas, that a real, just a family could get together and love and kind of get around the table together. And whereas before, a lot of those kind of Christmas dishes would have been seasonal, lots of people would have eaten them at different times of the year, Dickens does two things. He takes the goose, which is what the Cratchits are going to eat, and he turns it to a turkey, much bigger, meatier, kind of more generous. And then he takes this thing that he never calls Christmas pudding in A Christmas Carol. There's no Christmas pudding. He only calls it plum pudding, and he anchors it to that day. And interestingly, after then, people start publishing recipes for Christmas pudding, and it starts getting its name, Christmas pudding, from plum pudding. And I think all of that really comes from A Christmas Carol.
You say becomes a Christmas pudding almost immediately after A Christmas Carol is published.
Yes, I mean, it's occasionally called Christmas pudding before, but not often. And then a very famous for the time, the kind of Delia Smith of her day, lady called Eliza Acton, publishes a recipe called The Author's Christmas Pudding in 1845. And we know she's a big Dickens fan because she sent a copy of her cookbook to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Of course it is. Yes, of course.
Right. We're going through the papers with Scarlett Maguire and some other bloke. Who are falling out with in the break. James Price. Good morning. They've been very, very sarcastic about various things that we can't tell you about.
Well, we could, but there might be a few Ofcom complaints.
Yes. Jay, we're going to start with this one, just because we're having a bit of a giggle, so the first one probably isn't appropriate. So we'll start with the Times, James. Keir Starmer says, it's fascinating, he gave evidence, he's no regrets about his first 5 months in office. I mean, come on.
I mean, look, God give me the self-confidence of Sir Keir Starmer. After becoming the most unpopular Prime Minister, I think, ever in his first 5 months. He's done worse than Brown, worse than Liz Truss as well in terms of lack of popularity. He says he wouldn't change anything about it. I think the problem here is that if you were doing really deep structural changes, OK, they'd be really unpopular for a while, but they would bear fruit down the line, then fair enough. But he's doing really unpopular things that's going to make the country worse. And therefore, I think that his confidence in himself is perhaps misplaced.
Is there a single group of people that they haven't alienated yet?
Possibly the young. Possibly.
No, because, I mean, you know, education, tuition fees.
They've put up tuition fees by a tiny amount, and they're going to review...
But they still said they wouldn't.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
They really did not say they were not going to
They did when they were campaigning to get elected?
No, Keir made an error in when he was campaigning to be Labour leader, but when being elected, there was no question that tuition fees were going to have to go up, and there is a review. I mean, what they have done, which I think is really important, and we keep forgetting, is they put up the minimum wage, which for young people is a lot of, and it's particularly, you know, for people who are less skilled, who are going to go into the minimum wage, and it's good for the economy because people on low incomes spend it.
There's a few other groups he's not upset as well. The Chinese Communist Party, very happy with the Mauritian government.
Yes, I am not
the private equity companies who are going to buy up all the farmland when the farmers go bust.
No. Absolute rubbish, and it's not. And it's going to affect very few farmers, and it might affect people like Jeremy Clarkson and Dyson, who only bought it up because they wanted to. It was a. I mean, we do know that some of the farming stuff are scam. I mean, they're bought up by people to avoid inheritance tax.
It's very easy then. They're not going to farm the land, are they? Because it's an awful lot of work for not a lot of pay. So. Yeah. So why just not introduce the inheritance tax on people who buy the land and don't farm it?
Look, I think that things could have been done better. Okay, I think
Yes.
You can't defend the indefensible.
I'm not defending the indefensible. I'm saying things could have been done better. I think that things could have been introduced differently. I think that the winter fuel payment, that there were a lot of people, an awful lot of pensioners who didn't need that money, and I think it should have been something like taxed, so that people on a very low income got the whole thing, and people on high income got very little.
Well, meanwhile, Scott, the Times is saying that councils can seize land more easily, compulsory purchase orders, and pay people less for it. I mean, hey, it's even more worse news for the farmers, isn't it?
No, I don't.
The land they can't pass on, it could be seized from them now.
No, I think
to build on.
But what we do know is there's an awful lot of developers who buy land and don't do anything with it, right? And actually, we need houses on that land. So, I mean, I think that James, although he's not nodding, would agree with me that we do have to sort out this red tape that is stopping building.
So I think that land banking, as you talk about, is not the problem here. I do think there is a problem with the planning system in general, that people are able to complain about things when we desperately need more houses to be built. Even if we weren't having net 800,000 new immigrants coming in every year, we still need more houses to be built because there's still a problem and housing is too expensive. Great to have more infrastructure. Look at something like the Elizabeth line in London. It took forever. It now accounts for like 1 in every 4 or 5 journeys and is an amazing bit of British technology.
And it's wonderful, can I say?
We'd have more of that. We'd have more energy infrastructure. Then our bills would be cheaper. That's all great. The problem that you're going to have is that unless you do this really sensibly, then you're going to build ugly houses and people are going to be upset with that. If you built beautiful houses, if every new city built looked like the city of Bath, no one would complain. And in the process, because it is busy and difficult and messy to build things, we should compensate people for it. So if you live in France near a nuclear power station, you get free power. Right? Someone will go, that's a bribe. Like, OK, fine, it's a bribe. But it means that the French pay a lot less for energy than we do, and everyone's bills at home would be cheaper.
And the problem is we don't have enough builders to build these houses in any case.
I know, and we need to skill people up, and of course. But I mean, the other thing that houses is they need to be built so that they're properly insulated and they have solar panels, and all of that would bring it down. And what was the first thing the Conservatives did when they got in 2010? They stopped the green. I think I'm not allowed to say the word, but am I?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know what you were going to say.
CRAP.
No, best not.
No, probably best.
Probably
not.
best. Anyway, and immediately we went back to building houses. And I have to say, the Daily Mail at least once a week has a story about a new build thing that are built badly, that people have spent a lot of money, they've bought this house and it's got 50 defects and nobody's fixing it. And actually we need good houses. You're absolutely right. We need good houses built. We need lots we need wind farms on the land and off the land. And this should have been happening for the last 10 years, and it needs to happen now.
Right.
And it's not going to be popular, right? But actually, that is the infrastructure that we need.
All right, let's have a look at, away from all this, baby boomers, because obviously very good news for Dawn.
Only by 11 days.
Because
30
20
days.
Well, 70 is a new 60, which means 60 is a new 50.
50, which means you're still a fetus then, doesn't it?
It means I'm 40.
To quote Leonard Cohen,
not
you're
your
almost
IQ,
young.
your age.
I'm almost young. Hey, what?
Not your IQ, your age we're talking about.
But this is great news. This is the story that because of advances in modern medical technology and the fact that fewer people are having to do horrible back-breaking labour, as we've done through most of human existence, toiling away on the land and dying really young, people get to live a lot longer. The problem with that, of course, is, therefore, you can't retire so early and expect for the state to pay for you. And that's the message, obviously, to this waspy women stuff we've heard about before. It used to be the retirement age was set at, 65, when the life expectancy was 67. So the idea was, look, you've worked hard all your life, here's 2 years of the state looking after you before you pop your clogs. Now people are retiring and living decades, and we can't afford that because we're not a rich country anymore.
And I completely agree that the waspy women, actually, They were told in 1995 that it was going to change, and then what most women did is exactly like the men did, is they went on working until they were 66, and they might not like it, and they might and they might enjoy it. Who knows? But of course they shouldn't be given £10 billion, and that was the right decision by the government, right? That it was, and it's great that we can. I remember
how you've changed, the pair of you turned what was a nice little story into this very political debate.
God,
it was just like, isn't it nice that we're all living longer?
We may not live longer, it'll feel like we're living a lot longer.
I think it's great, because I remember when men retired at 65 and the house opposite my parents, you'd have all these people retiring to Dorset. The men would be dead in 3 years. I mean, it was incredible. But also it was like retirement was too much, that they didn't have anything to do. And that's why when we were talking about a decade, which hasn't happened, a decade of retirement, so people gradually retire, they work part-time and everything, and you don't suddenly wake up in the morning and you haven't got a job and you don't know what to do. So... But I think that the other thing about baby boomers is their health is better, but they're just more dynamic. I mean, the problem with baby boomers is that we won't let the young in.
By 20 days. Only by 20 days.
Oh, right.
By 20 days. I was born at the end of 1964, which makes me a baby boomer. Anyway, all this is driving you to drink.
Driving me to drink, I'll tell you.
I'm going to stay with you very quickly. Daily Mirror. Booze.
Booze is...
You have read the story, haven't you, Scarlett?
No. No, she says. Are you going to have a dry January,
Absolutely
James?
not. Definitely not after this morning. But this is the idea that many more people are going to be giving up booze in January, which seems the worst month to do it. You've not got Christmas to look forward to anymore. The nights are still drawing in. It's miserable. Let's all go down to the pub, help the pub industry.
It's because they've overdone it. That's the idea. They've overdone it.
That's people out of practice.
You know, it's the most miserable month of the year.
I think, but also it's really awful. You have these people round to dinner and they don't drink. And they just go on and on about how good they are not drinking. And actually, I have said to various friends of mine, I'll see you in February.
Dean Martin said, I don't trust people who don't drink. When they wake up in the morning, that's the best they're going to feel all day.
That's a very good line, and I say that as someone who doesn't drink.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's a fair point. Good to see you both this morning. Thanks very much indeed. Right, here's the weather with Aidan.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a fine start out there for many of us, but the weather turns increasingly wet from the northwest through the day, increasingly windy as well, although not as windy as it's expected to be through the weekend. Initially, some sunshine for the Midlands, parts of the east and southeast of England, but increasingly cloud and rain spread southeast through the day. A wet start for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland. As the rain clears, we've got blustery showers moving in. And by the afternoon, it's Western and Northern England, as well as Wales, where we're likely to see spells of rain. 11 Celsius in the south, feeling colder further northwest, where we've got a gusty northwesterly breeze and those showers pushing in. But for anyone that's heading off this evening's rush, it looks unsettled across the Midlands, the east and southeast of England. The rain and wind are clearing, so some clearer spells pushing into Wales and the southwest, as well as northern England by 6 p.m. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, will see frequent showers at this stage and a gusty wind. Temperatures of 6 or 7 Celsius. But all in all, the wind is tending to ease and clear spells will form more widely, particularly across central and southeastern England, where those clear spells will be lengthy overnight, and as a result, temperatures will drop away to 5 to 7 Celsius. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of the west of England and Wales, it turns wet and windy by the end of the night once again, and as a result, temperatures will rise by dawn. It's an unsettled start for many then, and the spells of rain are moving eastwards, petering out as they push into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but staying damp for much of the morning in these areas. Brighter skies arrive into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland by the afternoon, but at this stage the wind's really picking up, 50 to 60 mile-per-hour wind gusts. 80 or more for the west and north of Scotland could cause significant transport disruption throughout Saturday afternoon.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed southbound off the A96 at the Raigmore interchange at Inverness after an accident in the early hours of this morning causing queues. There are delays of up to 2 hours. The Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast because of poor weather. Tyne-and-Wear Metro services aren't running between Newcastle Airport Metro and Kingston Park because of overhead line problems, and there's no service between Heworth and Monument because of emergency engineering works. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down at junction 12. The M60 Eccles interchange. It's sloped towards and past there. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for repairs with sailings suspended between Holyhead and Dublin, and there are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Fishguard and Rosslare because of poor weather. And on the M1 in Bedfordshire, 3 out of 4 lanes are closed southbound at junction 12, the Toddington and Flitwick turn after an accident causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
And good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The budget has caused the economy to stagnate, and that's according to the Bank of England.
Yes, Andrew Bailey has downgraded growth forecasts and says businesses are cutting costs and raising prices after Rachel Reeves' raid on employers' national insurance.
Well, economists now saying they expect zero growth in the last 3 months of the year.
And meanwhile, the King's cancer treatment will continue into next year. Palace sources have said his treatment has been moving in a positive direction and there is a sense of optimism.
Now, Lord Mandelson is making a comeback. He's expected to be named today as the UK's ambassador to the United States. He will be the Prime Minister's close link to Donald Trump.
I feel like I'm in an endless loop here. Meanwhile, hope for the country's potholes as the government set out a roadmap to fixing the country's roads with a £1.6 billion budget boost for road maintenance.
Giselle Pellico's ex-husband is jailed for 20 years after drugging and raping her and inviting dozens of strangers to abuse her over nearly a decade.
And the country gears up for the busiest travel day of the year. We'll be bringing you the latest on the disruption and the areas to avoid.
Also, if you're planning your Christmas dinner, you're going vegan. Apparently more and more of us are. We'll find out later which options are making it to the Christmas table.
Lots of people getting away for Christmas over the next few days, but the weather is looking increasingly windy. I'll have the full details coming up in the forecast soon.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
I'm slightly, or should I say irritated by the whole vegan thing?
Why? You don't eat meat either, do you?
No, I'm vegetarian. I've been vegetarian for 45 years.
So, yeah, and I haven't eaten meat for 40 years.
Yeah,
so between us, we're very dull.
Yeah, well, no, but the thing is, you can be vegetarian, you can be vegan. I don't have an issue with people being vegan. What I have an issue about is that vegans, not all, but some vegans tend to try and convert everybody else into being vegan. I don't care if you eat meat or not. I just choose not to.
Yeah. Does your other half eats meat? Does he?
Yeah.
So your Christmas dinner, the Christmas dinner, right? So you don't eat meat, or you're a vegetarian, and you don't drink.
Yeah.
And your other half.
Stop laughing, Christopher.
Does both of those
That's
things.
great. Yeah. So we'll have. I mean, we do the roast and everything, but I'll have a. I don't know what I'm having, nut roast or something.
Nut roast. Figures.
So, but that's all right. And then everyone else will drink, hopefully sensibly. And I'll do the driving when we go to visit, family members.
Well,
in the
that's
evening and all
handy.
that.
You can be the designated driver. I quite like that bit.
I don't care what anybody else does.
No.
But it's just when vegans tend to be on a mission to convert everyone. That's what irritates me.
Yeah, and it does become a bit of a cult thing, doesn't it? I mean, but I'm the only one that's going to be just eating vegetables on Christmas Day. Yeah, but I don't like Brussels sprouts.
Oh, weirdo.
It's just like...
You look like a Brussels sprout today.
I know. I thought I'd give you that line, and you went for it.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts.
As they actually are.
Yeah, because they're from Brussels.
Yeah, but it's very hard to say, isn't it? Brussels sprouts.
Brussels is a... Put your teeth in.
Right, and if you're having a vegan dinner, let us know on gbnews.com/yoursay, or if you've been converted by another vegan, let us know as well. Now, our main story today is all about money, because the Bank of England has said the economy is stagnating, and that is because of the autumn budget.
The Funk economists have said this is due to businesses raising prices and cutting jobs in order to contend with the changes.
Well, we're now told that officials are expecting zero growth in the last 3 months of the year. Christopher Hope. I suppose the government could say, well, it's not a recession.
No. Well, it's not a recession until you have two contracting quarters.
Yeah.
So if it's zero for this quarter, then it'll need 2 quarters next year to contract before it's a recession.
So that would be good. Is this, in effect, going to be considered good news by the government?
It's not good news, because anyone who voted Labour back in July will know that, say, Keir Starmer was saying we're going to fund tax cuts through growth. The growth is the big thing. They are targeting growth. They've watered down the idea of being the world's the fastest growing G7 economy by the end of this decade. That's now an aim or an ambition. They want to make us feel rich in our pockets, but if the Bank of England is going to hold interest rates at 4.75% yesterday, if growth is zero, they can't fund anything. And then, of course, they're going to be cutting budgets next year for Whitehall. It's going to be very difficult, I think, next year for many people with spending cuts.
It's for inflation at an 8-month high as well. I mean, Rachel Reeves did pledge, and we all know what the pledges are like, that there would be no more tax rates on working people. Is she going to be able to stick to that?
Good question. She said into the CBI conference last month there'll be no more. There won't be another similar budget. But then she was pressed on that repeatedly. She can't write 4 years of budgets going forward, nor can she. And things happened. COVID happened. The Ukraine war happened in a past Parliament, and that was £500 billion extra that we weren't expecting to spend on dealing with those two issues on the energy shock, of course, from the Ukraine war. So yeah, I mean it's big concerns here. I think the government is doing its best. It's announcing today plans for potholes, 1.6 billion, £500 million more than expected. I, for one, welcome it. There's one forming in the road. As I walk past it today, I can see it building there. And these things are a nightmare if you're driving in rainy conditions on a Christmas evening. Perhaps you, Stephen, you'll be worrying about potholes and hitting one, and then you get an immediate pothole. Hundreds of millions all across English regions, spending it now. But again, this will be big problems. Unless you get growth, there'll be more cuts next year. And you've got to say that increase in 2% on national insurance for employers is having a downward pressure on jobs, and that is what we're hearing from the bank.
I mean, this is the issue, isn't it? It's about we know to generate growth, and at the point we are in the economy, there needs to be painful measures. it just seems like they've taken the wrong painful measures that aren't going to have the ultimate outcome that we need.
We don't know if they're wrong yet. We're only 1 month in. It's not looking great.
Well, that's diplomatic.
Well, I'm being fair to the government. We don't know yet, do we? It looks bad. It's certainly, we're not seeing immediate responses, but they're hoping that after 4 years, this will be a dim memory.
Right, yeah, good luck with that one. But talking of jobs and people potentially losing jobs, there's one person who's got a new one.
Yeah, he's called Peter Mandelson. He's, of course, a new Labour cabinet minister, lost his job twice under Tony Blair, then became EU Trade Commissioner. He's going to be the UK's ambassador to Washington. A big role, really big role, with Donald Trump taking over on January the 20th. I think it's a clever appointment. I think he's a politician. He's the first politician in that role for 4 decades. I think he's going to be someone who can try and get close to, knows how a mercurial leader like Trump works. He's not a kind of staid civil servant. I think it could work. And also, as a former EU Trade Commissioner, he can try and work out how we get a good deal on tariffs. We know that Trump wants to bring in tariffs again to put like 10% on imports to the US. That could affect whiskey, other key exports to the US. I think it's quite an interesting appointment, and he's close to Morgan McSweeney, who's Chief of Staff to Keir Starmer. He knows how the EU works. It might be a masterstroke.
Will he get on Trump, though?
We don't know yet. We're watching Twitter, we're watching Truth Social, we're waiting for the reaction from Trump. You'd expect Trump was warned about it. There was a phone call 2 nights ago between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump.
Yeah, you would think that actually, if anyone can charm Trump, someone like Mandelson could. But he's going to... It's the Farage issue in all of this. Now, I mean, Nigel Farage as ambassador would have been interesting, but also would have been, he's just been elected.
I think impossible.
Yes, that would have been very difficult. But it would be stupid, wouldn't it, to ignore the fact that we have someone in British politics who is so closely linked to the President of the United States.
And Farage has offered help to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer crossed the floor of the Commons to speak to Farage famously a few weeks ago during a key vote. And at that point, Farage said, I want to help. Farage... At his heart, he's political, of course, but he's a patriot. He wants the best for this country. He wants good relations with the US. He's the Trump whisperer. He was at Mar-a-Lago at the weekend meeting with J.D. Vance, but not with Trump that time. Knows Elon Musk, of course, running this efficiency department now for the US. So he wants to help. I think, and we heard from Mandelson saying Labour should reach out and embrace Farage, and that is, frankly, intelligent politics, because Farage, love him or loathe him, and the Labour lot tend to loathe him, he's important to our national interest.
Yeah, he is. OK. Christopher, good to see you. Thank you.
Happy Christmas.
Indeed. Right, all ties in with our poll of the day. Today we're asking, do you agree with Peter Mandelson's appointment as the UK's next US ambassador? So far, 5% of you think it's a good idea, 95% of you do not.
OK, well, the final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show. And for all our latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Right. Now, drivers who are planning holiday getaways have been warned to expect very long traffic jams due to record levels of travellers today. It's expected to be the busiest day of the year on roads, with nearly 24 million of us planning to travel.
That's due to be more than the current busiest day on the record, which was all the way back in 2010.
Let's talk to our national reporter, Charlie Peters, who's at Waterloo this morning. I mean, is the station quiet because more people are on the roads, Charlie?
Possibly, Stephen. Physically, I'm in Waterloo, but spiritually, I feel as though I am in Lapland as dreams of Christmas time flow in. And it is pretty quiet, to be honest. I think it's, Friday is not really a working day for a lot of people. They tend to work from home nowadays in London town. But it's getting out of London and getting out of the cities and getting home to our families that's causing a lot of concern for the AA, the rescue company, and lots of other travel companies as well. They're warning about a gridlock period from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. today. They're warning that that could be the period of the highest traffic. So if you're watching this now and thinking of getting away, get out before 2 p.m. And if you do, make sure you put GB News radio on in the car. But they're warning about queues of 45 minutes on the M3 between Surrey and Hampshire, the M25 in West London, and the M1 near Watford. But up north, it's the M53 northbound from Chester to Liverpool that is attracting the major worries from rescue companies. And if you're on the rails today, engineering and strike action are going to have major impacts over the coming weeks, especially over the next week in particular, with Avanti West Coast announcing strike action to take place in the final hours of this year. That will stretch well into the May bank holiday. There'll be no direct services between Crewe and Liverpool and a reduced service between Crewe and Manchester from Saturday, December the 28th until Friday, January the 3rd, with Mick Lynch saying that sustained strike action the only option now for trade union members. And if that's not enough, if you're struggling to get in and around Britain, then there's also issues with getting out of the country, because Sunday is expected to be the busiest day of flying for some time, with the Civil Aviation Authority pointing towards the 20th being this coming Sunday being the busiest day for outbound trips. 4 million people expected to spend the Christmas period out of the country. So significant travel from all of the major airports, they're saying. I've looked at some deals. Liverpool and Manchester offering some very cheap 4-night stays over Christmas. If you want to get away from your family, you're not feeling particularly festive, then Albufeira and Tenerife offering some pretty fine deals from the northwest this morning.
You miserable devil, Charlie.
Yeah. Is your mum watching, Charlie? Just out of interest.
No. Oh, miserable. No Christmas presents for you,
No.
Charlie. You're on the naughty step. Thanks very much
Definitely.
indeed. I just want to correct this as well. Well, not correct it, just raise it. Because I've been bumbling on about age, according to Stephen Kenny, and he says, can't Stephen see that Dawn is touchy about her age? And I'm bumbling on. Let me be absolutely clear about this. Dawn is not touchy about her age. She's proud of her age, and quite right too. 60 and proud.
60, sassy, sexy.
Yeah.
It's the new 20 the way I'm going, to be honest with you.
No, she's not touchy about
I'm
her age.
so not touchy.
No.
I love it. 60's good. You wait till you get there.
No.
Not long, is it?
Another 10 years, and I shall be there. But no, and I don't think anyone should be touchy about her age. I think you should embrace it.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because what's the only alternative to not getting older?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully you've got a lot of money to spend in your old age. Here's a way to get hold of, potentially at least, get hold of £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's our great British giveaway, and it could all be yours.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Good luck, indeed. You know what I'd spend it on now? Cosmetic surgery to look younger.
Give over. Give over, don't be daft.
No,
if you did something like that, I'd be really mad at you.
I'd like you mad at me, though.
I'll serve you a vegan Christmas dinner then. Be furious. We're finding more about the alternative festive feast in just a moment.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
So, how did you get into radio initially?
It's the old thing. You do discos.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you used to put needles on.
What sort of year we're talking about?
Oh, it was black and white.
Okay.
That's the closest you're going to get.
Beatles, Rolling Stones?
Yeah. Sort of later than... Yeah, sort of a bit later than that, doing discos. But then you sort of do a tape. I did a tape for BBC Radio Manchester, the local BBC station. And just one off, got a copy of that, edit. Yeah. Naively thought, everybody's going to send a tape to Piccadilly, which was the Manchester station, which was 73. And instead of that, a couple of years later, I sent a tape to Radio City in Liverpool, not thinking that everybody in Liverpool's going to be sending a tape there. And just a guy just went, I'm too good for this, doing the overnights, walked out, and my tape was on the top of the pile. And I got a phone call on a Thursday night, Thursday, the 12th of February, 76. Can you do 2 till 6 in the morning on Radio City in Liverpool? I thought it was one of my pals.
And what was you talking about on that radio show?
It was an overnight programme, so it's music.
Yeah.
In those days, you didn't have much needle time, but clever devil here noticed that the BBC stuff was not needle time.
Yeah.
So I used to put like the Goons on and the Hancocks. So you've got half an hour, and me and the security guy, Bert, on the door. We're the only two in the building. Yeah. I used to get in my car, put the Goons on, get in my car, dash down to the pier head, get a bacon butty, listening to it all the time, hoping that the record's not stuck, and then dashing back.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, hello, welcome back. With the festive season in full swing, many of you... Full swing?
Full swing.
Full swing, yeah. Are you swinging yet in a full way?
Oh, absolutely.
But what's on your Christmas Day menu? Where most of us are, well, many of us are having vegan Christmas dinners.
Yes, now in 2021, the Vegan Society said 1 in 5 Brits were including plant-based dishes in their Christmas dinner, and 1 in 6 would consider going fully vegan.
So will you be changing your traditions or sticking to the classics?
Let's talk to Vegan Society Media and PR Officer Maisie Steadman. Maisie, good. Oh, you can't. Oh, Maisie can't hear us. Can you hear us yet, Maisie? No, all right, let's forget about that. Because I tell you what, it's one of those things. If you want to have some vegan stuff, have some vegan stuff. Nana Akua is totally vegan, and she campaigns for vegan rights.
Oh, God. I don't mean to be rude.
You're not a fan? You don't mean to be rude?
I'm not a fan. Actually, I'm going to be rude now. Vegan food, a lot of it is actually ultra-processed because you're buying some of it that's already pre-packaged, so a lot of it's bad for you. And there's so many sort of vegans who go, I'm a vegan. It's so much healthier. And I don't think it is, unless you know what you're doing and you know how to cook.
It can be if you're cooking your own stuff.
You can get some very nice vegan food. I went to... the best vegan restaurant I ever went to was in Poland, believe it or not. The array of colours and tastes and textures, none of the processed junk you're talking about, which I agree with.
That's the problem with the vegan food. I knew this guy that I used to work with at the BBC.
Where?
At the BBC. And he would say, oh, I'm vegan, and I'd say, what are you eating? And he'd be eating jelly sweets. He'd go, so, well, there's no meat or dairy.
Gelatin.
Yeah, but the ones that don't have the gelatin in them.
Oh.
You know, but you'd be eating a load of rubbish, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some vegans who are very healthy and do it all properly, but it can be a bit of a fad with... apparently our guest is...
I think we can talk Brussels sprouts.
Maisie Steadman. We're just saying, Maisie, good to see you, by the way. I mean, veganism, you have got to be careful with it, haven't you? Because if you're just buying the processed stuff, then that can be a bit problematic, can't it?
Really. I mean, there are obviously processed vegan alternatives, the same as there are lots of kind of processed meat and dairy options as well. So it's really just about kind of making the most of your diet sort of based on whole plant foods and having these kind of more processed things as treats now and again, exactly the same as you would any other balanced diet. And I think it is actually worth bearing in mind that a lot of these vegan processed alternatives are kind of healthier than their non-vegan counterparts. So they're often higher in fiber, lower in salt and fat and things like that. So although they're not necessarily, you know, the peak of health in terms of if we're going to compare it to vegetables, they are actually still a better choice comparatively a lot of the time. And of course, you know, if you're having a Christmas dinner, you don't need to go for these alternatives. They can be really good for replicating those kinds of tastes and flavors of meat that many of us know from, you know, our childhoods or throughout our lives before we were veggie or vegan. But we can make some really fantastic things with, you know, veggies. We've got some great recipes on the website for things like a butternut squash Wellington or a mushroom Wellington, chestnut and mushroom pies, things like that. So there are lots of things to choose from.
To be fair, they do sound very Christmassy, don't they, Dawn?
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds lovely to me. But, I mean, what is your favourite Christmas dinner as a vegan? What would you have?
I mean, I do personally like the meat alternatives on Christmas Day. It's something that I was used to growing up, having kind of meat on Christmas Day. So I think for a treat on Christmas, I do really enjoy kind of getting an alternative for that from the supermarket. So one of our trademark registered sort of vegan turkey alternatives, something like that. And I'll have that on my Christmas dinner as my main. But my mum, she's a vegetarian as well, and she's a big fan of these kind of more whole foods alternatives. So she will make something typically for all of us to share, which would be something like I've just mentioned, like a chestnut and mushroom pie or something like that. So there's a good variety normally for us.
That does sound very nice, I have to say. Look, sadly, we are out of time, but really good to see you, Maisie. Thank you very much indeed. Each to their own. Nana's not impressed, but there you go. She's a carnivore, aren't you, Nana?
Yeah, absolutely. I like my animals.
Don't sit too close. Don't sit too close.
No, I wouldn't do. I wouldn't do. She'd eat you alive.
No.
Right, what's coming up in your show, you two?
Saturday midnight, pensioners in the UK have until then to apply for pension credit if they've been stitched up with the winter fuel allowance. There's a massive queue. Apparently it takes weeks and weeks and weeks anyway for it to be processed. So if you are trying to get pension credit, you have until tomorrow night to apply.
And also shopping online. Did you do it online or did you go out to the shops?
Mix of the both.
Did you?
Yeah.
When you use the past tense, that's assuming that we've already done it.
I haven't even started.
Me neither.
Have you not, really?
No. I've got a couple of things, but no, I haven't really started. I mean, my kids have got nothing yet.
Really?
Yeah. I don't see them until after Christmas, so I'll buy it in the sale.
Cunning. That's cunning.
Are you really going to do that?
Of course I am. Well, they're not going to be in my house. They're going off with their dads.
This is sensible girl planning. Come on.
I suppose it is.
The sale.
You're all sorted, aren't you, Ben?
No. Maybe today? If I'm free?
Yeah.
Oh, hopeless.
Yeah.
Right, thank you both. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much indeed. You're going to do a bit of shopping in the next 5 seconds.
Yes, indeed.
Right.
Thank you.
Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a fine start out there for many of us, but the weather turns increasingly wet from the northwest through the day, increasingly windy as well, although not as windy as it's expected to be through the weekend. Initially, some sunshine for the Midlands, parts of the east and southeast of England, but increasingly cloud and rain spread southeast through the day. A wet start for Western Scotland, Northern Ireland. As the rain clears, we've got blustery showers moving in. And by the afternoon, it's Western and Northern England, as well as Wales, where we're likely to see spells of rain. 11 Celsius in the south, feeling colder further northwest, where we've got gusty northwesterly breeze and those showers pushing in. But for anyone that's heading off this evening's rush, it looks unsettled across the Midlands, the east and southeast of England. The rain and wind are clearing, so some clearer spells pushing into Wales and the southwest, as well as northern England by 6 p.m. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, will see frequent showers at this stage and a gusty wind, temperatures of 6 or 7 Celsius. But all in all, the wind is tending to ease and clear spells will form more widely, particularly across central and southeastern England, where those clear spells will be lengthy overnight, and as a result, temperatures will drop away to 5 to 7 Celsius. But for Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of the west of England and Wales, it turns wet and windy by the end of the night once again, and as a result, temperatures will rise by dawn. It's an unsettled start for many then, and the spells of rain are moving eastwards, petering out as they push into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but staying damp for much of the morning in these areas. Brighter skies arrive into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland by the afternoon, but at this stage the wind's really picking up, 50 to 60 mile/hour wind gusts. 80 or more for the west and north of Scotland could cause significant transport disruption throughout Saturday afternoon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A9 is closed southbound off the A96 at the Raigmore interchange at Inverness after an accident in the early hours of this morning. There are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast because of poor weather. On the M6 in Cumbria, 2 lanes are closed southbound, where a car's overturned at junction 36 at Kirby Lonsdale, causing delays. Tyne and Wear Metro services aren't running between Newcastle Airport Metro and Kingston Park because of overhead line problems, or between Heworth and Monument because of emergency engineering works. The Port of Holyhead remains closed for repairs, with sailings suspended between Holyhead and Dublin, and there are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Fishguard and Rosslare because of the weather. Train services are suspended between Orpington and Victoria Station in London because of a signalling problem at Bickley, and the M3 in Surrey is blocked southbound by an accident at junction 2 for the M25, causing queues.